How you doing, guys? So, hopefully, an eagerly anticipated show. It's a bit different because we're doing a TV, whereas normally we do, I suppose, predominantly do movies. As you can see, Chef's lost loads of weight in the last few weeks.
and got much more handsome.
And got much more handsome. No, Chef's got some internet issues, so he won't be joining us tonight. Martin's got another engagement, but will be joining us. He did say he'll try and get on as soon as possible. So he said to me probably about 9, but if he can get on earlier, he will do. So, and I'll keep an eye on my phone because I did send in a link, but you never know, he might not have seen it. So, how are you, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. All good. Looking forward to having a bit of a chat about some really nostalgic TV shows.
I'll be honest, I've been wanting to do this one for a while. I actually did the thumbnail for this ages ago. Like, it's just been sitting there, like, ready to go.
Yeah.
But it was obviously other things kept coming up. So it was kind of like, well, we'll do this first. You know, like, for example, Christmas come up. It was like, right, we'll do Christmas. And then the new year, it was like, well, I suppose we should really do films of 2023, you know, looking back.
Yeah.
So this was like the first opportunity, if you like, to really do it. So, like I was saying with you before we started, you know, I remember doing videos on this about 4 years back, but then not many people were watching the channel, so I didn't really feel they got the views they deserved because I did a lot of research for them videos. But yeah, I think the Street Hawk one didn't do bad, but that was because of what I titled it. It was something like Street Hawk, What Went Wrong, or something like that. People love a title like that, don't they? They just click on it.
Yeah.
You know? So, but yeah, but nevertheless, it's worked out well because I did all that research, and then obviously knowing I was doing the stream, it's like, right, okay, well, I'll just go back and, you know, look at all that again. And so I've now got like 10 pages of notes, and so if at any point we're not sure on something, I'm sure I've got it in here just to make sure. So I suppose before we get going, Scott, if you was to pick your favourite out of these three, which would it be?
Oh.
It's a hard question, isn't it?
Oh, that is hard. Do you know what? If I go nostalgic, as we were saying off air,
yeah,
when I was little, when I was a kid, when these first come out, I absolutely love Street Hawk. So nostalgically, I would go Street Hawk.
Yeah.
But there's reasons, you know, we know now why Street Hawk didn't favour so well. But back then, I just was amazed by that program. Don't get me wrong, I love the others as well. I'd say my least favourite was Airwolf. I did like it, but I found it a bit boring, a bit repetitive. Whereas Knight Rider, you know, that's the best one probably. But, you know, nostalgic-wise, Street Hawk.
I think a lot of what you said is right. I mean, I should say Street Hawk because I've always been into my motorbikes, and it's probably because of Street Hawk and also the fact my uncle used to ride as well. So that's probably the reasons why I was always into bikes.
Yeah.
But the first one I watched was Knight Rider. So Knight Rider will always be the most nostalgic for me. And I totally get what you're saying about Airwolf as well, because yes, it did go that way. In fact, it got really lame towards the end.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that when we get round to Airwolf. But I think for me it would have to be Knight Rider because Knight Rider was really the one that got my attention, I think.
It's the most successful one as well, wasn't it? There was nothing else like it. It covered everything. And it ran for so long as well.
Well, actually, technically, Knight Rider and Airwolf did run for the same amount of time. However,
really?
Yeah, they both went for 4 seasons. However, I would say that the 4th season of Knight Rider probably favoured better than Airwolf. But again, we'll get into that when we get round to Airwolf because, yeah, they made some questionable decisions. Let's just say that. So,
Chef just mentioned Blue Thunder. Now, that's a film I absolutely loved. I still love that film. I watch it every now and again. That's a great film.
We had a discussion about that not so long back in the group, didn't we? Someone was saying about how they cut the bit where you see the woman's, she's got her boobs out, I think, and she
That's
in one
right.
of the
Yeah, they're sort of spying on her, aren't they?
Yeah, she's at the window. Of course, you wouldn't get away with that now because you'd upset the old snowflakes with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, Chef's first. And we've got Alex. How you doing, Alex? Talking between each other. What's this flying doctors? What's he going on about? Flying Doctor, Highway to Heaven. What's wrong with you?
I laughed at that Highway to Heaven.
My God, talking about good programs of the 80s here. What are you Wash the Mouth Out Zombie. Airwolf is so good. Do you know there's something about Airwolf actually, which I never realised until a few years back when I did the video on it. There's something about Airwolf that's right in your face, but you never would know really until someone points it out to you. And that is, I'll tell you now actually before we get to it. So, have you ever noticed that? I mean, obviously the patch looks pretty cool, right, on the flight suits, yeah.
Yeah.
But have you ever noticed what the patch is actually of?
No, can't say. I haven't watched Airwolf in years. You know,
So,
that's probably the one I've not seen in a very long time.
so most people will say, "Oh, it's a wolf," and it is. There is a wolf's head there, but there's more to it than just that. So there's also like a kind of set of bat wings. But then if you
Right.
look really carefully, there's a sheepskin over the wolf's head. And that's meant to symbolize the fact that, if you remember in the first pilot episode, they point out the fact that the helicopter's meant to be something that can go under the radar as looking
That's right.
civilian when it's not.
Yeah.
So there's your wolf in sheep's clothing reference, which is why it's on the patch.
Ah.
Yeah. I never realised that until, like I say, when I did the video 4 years ago and I was researching, and I always thought the patch looked cool. And then when I read up about it underneath, it's like, oh, so that's what the designer was going for. That's really clever, you know? So, used to turn the TV so loud. I was on about the music for...
The music for all three of them was amazing.
Yes.
That's the one standout thing, isn't it? On all three of them, the music is just brilliant. The intro... You know, the 80s was the decade for intros, wasn't it?
Do you know even the bits where you had the bit where the voiceovers, I mean, they were really good as well.
Yeah.
Like you always had that guy with the dramatic, deep voice, you know, like, for example, Knight Rider one, I've got it written here. Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist. Do you remember how he says it? He does it in that deep voice, doesn't he? You know,
I remember the movie, you know, the original pilot TV movie, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That was kind of really quite dark, wasn't it?
Yes.
I love that. You know, it's still really watchable now. I'll watch that because it's obviously it got a lot more light-hearted as the TV series went on. But that first pilot sort of movie was really quite dark.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I suppose you could say that with all of them, really. I mean,
yeah.
In the first one, he gets shot in the face, which is how he ends up with his face being changed, you know. In Knight Rider, and then when you come to Airwolf, I mean, obviously the guy steals the craft, he kills loads of people, you know.
Yeah.
The woman who the main character falls in love with ends up dead, you know, so he avenges her death. It's all pretty dark. And then even Street Hawk, you get the Street Hawk, and his partner gets killed, he gets run over, you know, like it's like, man, there was some pretty dark stuff in kids' programs back in the day, you know. It's amazing how parents actually let us watch it when you think about it.
Yeah.
Different time now, isn't it? That's the thing.
Oh, Chef's still defending Airwolf. I take it Airwolf is Chef's favourite.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm you know, it sounds wrong when I turn around and say, like, for example, I'd say probably Street Hawk is probably my least favourite. I think I'd probably put Airwolf above it. But it always sounds wrong when I say either of them are not as good, because that's not entirely true. You know, like they were all really good.
All three of them are really good. Yeah.
And they all had their faults as well. That's the other thing. Neither of them were perfect.
Here's a question for you, Lee. Could one of these three exist now? Could they redo Knight Rider or Street Hawk or Airwolf?
Well, it's interesting you asked that, because they tried to reboot Knight Rider in 2008, didn't they?
I was going to say they've tried to do it a few times, haven't they?
It didn't work. It went for one season and then it got cancelled, which is a shame, because
isn't that when Kit could transform into a pickup truck?
Yeah,
I do remember it. Yeah,
nanotech. He could change it into two different cars and a pickup. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
but I mean, the thing with it was, I mean, the car was all right. You know, I think the actors they chose was one of the things I think that didn't work for them. But what I did like was Kit's voice, because he was voiced by Val Kilmer. I thought he did such a good job on that. He did actually sound really good. You know, if anyone was going to do a voice, if someone had said to you, "Oh, Val Kilmer's doing it," you'd be like, "No, that won't work." But when you actually hear it in the program, it sounds quite good. So, but yeah, right, okay. So before we say any more, let's actually get into Knight Rider first. I think,
Yeah,
because it was the first one, so I think it's only right that we get into it. Right, so I've got all sorts of little facts. So as we're talking now, I'll just read a few out. But so Scott, do you remember what KIT stood for?
oh my goodness, no.
Knight Industries 2000.
Ah,
And
yeah,
in fact, it even works in the new one when they rebooted it, because he's Knight Industries 3000, so it still works as KIT.
yeah.
So it's quite clever what they did there. And do you remember the name of the government faction they work for? Do you remember that?
Oh, no.
It was called Flag, and it was the Foundation for Law and Government.
Right. I just remember Devon.
Yeah, Devon, yeah. Yeah, well, that's a funny thing, actually, because before we go any further, I've got some bits on the cast as well. So I don't know if you remember, because we'll go through the cast. Obviously, you've got David Hasselhoff played Michael Knight. Patricia McPherson played Bonnie.
Yeah.
But then you also had a character in season 2 called April, played by Rebecca Holden. Now, I don't know if you remember, but April comes in season 2. Bonnie's gone. There's no mention as to where she's gone. And then at the end of season 2, going into season 3, Bonnie's back in season 3 and April's gone, and there's no mention of where she's gone either.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. Yeah.
They do address Bonnie coming back, and it turns out she's been working at some sort of research place for Flag. But they don't mention where April goes. But the out of universe explanation was basically agents couldn't get a contract settled with I think it was it CBS or NBS, whatever they were called. The company that was doing Knight Rider. Basically, they couldn't come to an agreement, and so she was taken out of it, and they hired April instead. So
Yeah.
basically, later on, because of David and the guy who played Devon, Edward Mulhare, they basically kept fighting to get Bonnie back, and so she was back in the 3rd season. So
Right.
yeah, so that's why that happened. But obviously, you had, like I said, you had Devon played by Edward Mulhare. Do you remember RC? Do you remember that character?
No.
So he comes into season 4. That's when they start doing all the stupid shit with Super Pursuit mode on KIT. You remember?
Right. Yeah.
Which I always thought was ridiculous because it made the car less aerodynamic. I never quite understood how that made it go faster. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, let's turn it into a square and it makes it go faster. No, that wouldn't happen. Like, slapping more shit on it makes it slower and heavier. So yeah, yes, and then obviously, you know, you had KIT, who was voiced by William Daniels. If you don't know who he was the head teacher in Boy Meets World. Yeah, you remember?
Yeah.
And of course, we've got to mention another important bad guy, Carr. Do you remember Carr?
I remember Carr. Yeah.
So do you remember what his acronym was?
No.
So his acronym was Night Automated Roving Robot.
Ah.
He was a precursor to KIT, but because they didn't put any programming for him to appreciate life, he basically was in it for himself. He'd kill people to get what he wanted, sort of
That's
thing.
right. Yeah.
Made him dangerous. So yeah, it's kind of funny actually, because I watched, in preparation for this, I thought I watched some Knight Rider, and I'm going to watch, I watched Goliath Part 1 and 2, Goliath Returns Part 1 and 2, and then I watched both of the car episodes, because I think in terms of bad guys, you had your weekly bad guys, but with them, they were the reoccurring ones.
Yeah.
And with Carr, it's quite interesting because originally, I don't know if you knew this, but in the first episode he's in season 1, his voice is done by Peter Cullen.
All right.
You know who Peter Cullen is?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't think what he done.
You'll kick yourself when you find out. He voiced Optimus Prime.
Oh Christ! Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah. Later on, when he come back in the second one, he was then voiced by a guy called Paul Frees. But you know what? I can't actually decide which one's better because they both do a great job of doing Car's voice. They both give it like a kind of deep robot-y voice, and it does sound really good.
Yeah.
You know, most people will straight away go, "Oh, Peter Cullen's the best voice actor," but I got to be honest, I found it hard when I'm watching them both back to back today. I was like, "Oh, I can't tell which one's better." And these both sound good, you know. And they were very similar as well. That was the other thing. So
Well, the mad thing is about Knight Rider is when you asked if I could come on the stream and do it, I had someone come into the shop and trade in the Knight Rider box set. So
yeah,
obviously I've watched the pilot, the movie, sort of like probably a couple of years ago, but I've not watched any of these in years. You know, I'm going purely on nostalgia and memory.
That's the same set I've got. It's a good set, that one.
It is. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I will go through it slowly because there's how many episodes is there?
Well, you got 4 seasons.
There's 26 discs in here. So
if I remember right, I think it does it. I know one of the series is 80 episodes, but I can't remember whether that's Knight Rider or Airwolf. One of them's got 80 episodes, which would say 20 per season, but I don't know if it's. I can't remember if that's Airwolf or Knight Rider. Yeah. If I was to make a guess, I'd probably say Knight Rider because Airwolf, the full season was ropey as hell. So, yeah. I'd say possibly it's 80 episodes with Knight Rider, I reckon. So, but yeah, so while we was talking about Car, in the 2008 reboot, they actually apparently brought Car back. Now, this is the thing. I have got it on DVD, but I never actually finished it. I think I only watched like half the season of it.
Yeah, see, I think I only watched half of that. I can't remember watching all of it.
It kind of got some of the acting in it was terrible, and I just found it hard to watch. Too much CGI as well, and so as a result, I didn't realize this until I was looking through this stuff. But they bring Car back, but he's like a Car 2.0. Kind of doesn't make sense to me because apparently they mention in the episode the original Car.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it's like, well, okay, so if you was aware of the original Car, why the bloody hell would you build another one? Like, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I need to watch the episode to find out what goes on. But apparently, the car in that, he's like a transformer. Apparently, it turns into like a robot.
Right.
Like I say, I'm only going on what I read. I haven't seen this episode, so I'm going to have to look at this at some point. But
you're going to have to watch it now.
Yeah, and the car stands for something different. So originally it was Night Automated Roving Robot, but now it stands for, in the new one, Night Auto Cybernetic Roving Robotic Exoskeleton. So exoskeleton means that it needs a human component, so a person can get in it as the robot suit. Like it all sounds very weird. You can kind of see, I think, why it didn't work. You know?
Yeah. I just remember it being poor acting.
Yeah, I thought their lead was a bad idea. It's a shame because it had a good start. I mean, the way they passed the torch, I thought was quite ingenious. They brought David Hasselhoff back, you know, and he explains that the reason I wasn't around much because you find out he's dead. And he explains to you the reason he wasn't around a lot was because he was doing the job that he's now going to be doing. Yeah. You know, so it's like the son's taking over from the dad. I thought that was quite cool, but unfortunately, size here, it kind of fell apart a bit after that. Can't believe I found Airwolf DVDs today when you are doing this stream. Yeah, it was weird when both of you really. I mean, you got the box there. He found Airwolf today. Yeah, it was really weird. Stars aligned, I suppose. Box packed. Airwolf was 79 episodes. Yeah, so it must have been thinking in. Yeah, I know I read somewhere that one of them had 80. Retro says 70%.
He's talking about his boxes being packed, I think, for his house move.
Ah, right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. Okay. So, so a few facts about Kit here. So, Kit is a modified 1982 Trans Am. Obviously, we know he was voiced by Daniel Williams. The seasons run from 1982 to 1984. We've already mentioned about Super Pursuit Mode. I thought that was ridiculous. I thought that was the worst thing they ever did. I just don't get it. Like, it was almost like they slapped a load of Lego on it.
Yeah.
And when this will make it faster, it's like, have you watched Formula One? You do know that would create more drag, right? Yeah. And I think ultimately that was what killed it, wasn't it, really? Season 4 was terrible. I remember being like quite shocked when you see Kit, because obviously you'd seen him get hit before, like when Goliath hit him that time. And he was, it's like, oh, is Kit going to come back? But with that season, it was the one where, if I remember right, he gets pushed into some acid and he has to be reprogrammed from scratch. He doesn't remember anyone and all that stuff. And that's when the Super Pursuit Mode and all that crap starts getting stuck on it. And I remember, like, beginning of the season, it's like, oh, is Kit going to make it? To literally not caring once the Super Pursuit Mode thing come into it. It's like, how did you manage that? You managed to make all us kids worried that Kit might not come out of this to, oh, I don't care now because you got some stupid Super Pursuit Mode on it. It went downhill fast, I think. Pull your finger out. We need to see what's in your loft. God, they're going on about that, are they? Have you talked to had the best intro? Best intro? No, we did kind of touch on, like, the speech parts of it and how we liked the music. I don't know. I don't think I could really pick a best one. I think they're all good.
I do like the Knight Rider intro. I do like the desert, the flashing light. That is great intro. But I also love the Street Hawk intro.
Yeah,
I love the music. The whole
again with Street Hawk, you got that voiceover as well, haven't you? Like Meet Jesse Mark. Yeah. And again, I mean, like the Knight Rider one. Like I started it earlier. Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist. Michael Knight, a young loner on a crusade to champion the cause of the innocent, the helpless, the powerless, in a world of criminals who operate above the law. Like that's a good voiceover, right? But you got to have the deep voice. It doesn't work when I do it. But then you got Street Hawks one, which is Jesse Mark, an ex-motorcycle cop injured in the line of duty, now a police troubleshooter, recruited for a top-secret government mission to ride Street Hawk, an all-terrain attack motorcycle designed to fight urban crime, capable of incredible speeds up to 300 miles an hour and immense firepower. Only one man, Federal Agent Norman Tuttle, knows Jesse Mark's true identity: the man, the machine, Street Hawk. Yeah, that's a good intro, isn't it? Like, if you'd never watched it before and you put either of them programs on, you instantly know what it's about just from that.
Well, like what Jeff just said, Street Hawk's music was done by Tangerine Dream.
Tangerine Dream, yeah.
And that is, it's just, I think it's one of the most nostalgic tunes for me. It really is. It's sort of like buried in my head. I just absolutely love that too.
Oh, Thunder in Paradise. Yeah, that was the boat, wasn't it?
What was that? What boat?
Don't you remember that? Thunder in Paradise. It was like a speedboat, but it was like black. They basically tried to rip off the ideas of, Kit and Street Hawk and Airwolf.
I don't remember that.
I don't think it was so successful over here. A few of the episodes did get played over here, but it wasn't as big here as it was in America. It was Hulk Hogan, though.
Oh, yes. I was then going to say, I remember a program with Hulk Hogan in a boat.
Yeah.
That's that. Yeah.
I don't, like I say, I mean, I never really got into it that much. I don't actually remember what was special about it. I think it had like a stealth capability, if I remember right, and it was fast, but I think that was about it. I don't remember.
Am I getting it muddled up? Didn't that get made into like an interactive game as well or something? Or was that a different Hulk Hogan
Possibly, because they did, I think, try to do a movie maybe after the series, or was it before? It flopped anyway, I remember that. Can't stay long at work till 10, got to give meds out. Oh, yeah. We saw that bag of meds this morning. We know what sort of meds you're on about. Right, so a few more bits about Knight Rider. So, did you know there was a spin-off series after the original show called Team Knight Rider? Did you know that?
No.
No, it would appear most people didn't. One season and it was cancelled.
Oh, right. So it's a success.
Basically, what they tried to do was, it was like, well, you know how Knight Rider is so great? Well, here's a team of people. And it's like, right, so you're taking what was great between a man in his car and now making it 5 people. And how's that better? Like,
What did they share one car then?
I don't know. It sounds like what they did was they just diminished it because now you had more people doing one job. You know what I mean? Like when you got one guy doing all this.
In that one, that was what you call it, people carrier.
But I mean, they had another spin-off from that called Code of Vengeance, which was one of the characters I think they saved in one of the episodes. Now, that series ran 85 to 86 and then got cancelled. And I put in my notes here, was basically Knight Rider without kit. So that's what they did. They had like the investigation cop sort of side of it, but he hasn't got the car. So it's like, right, okay, so you've got Knight Rider, took out kit, and that's Code of Vengeance. Doesn't work. Like, you know, I just think it's funny, like, because they did that after Knight Rider was cancelled. So why did you think that was a better idea? I don't understand that. Doesn't make sense.
What Jeffers put, it was a Peugeot 308 Estate, Scott. The team were in.
Oh, God. Oh, it probably would have been more successful, actually, to be fair.
You know what? I think what should be included, and hear me out here, is we're talking about Knight Rider, Street Hawk, and Airwolf, but something that was equally as important, I think, to me growing up, was the A-Team and that van. You know, that was a significant appeal to me as a young boy watching the A-Team. The van itself was a character.
The thing for me, I mean, funny enough, I did a poll before mentioning the stream, you know, and there was a few people who did put in a thing, oh, you forgot A-Team. And I was like, no, because it's not a super vehicle like these 3 were. It's different. And I did say to the guy in the end, I said, look, I agree. The A-Team van was a cool van. There's no mistake in it. It's a Dodge Ram. It's a nice looking van. But it doesn't do supersonics. It doesn't fly through the air. You know, it doesn't fire lasers. You know, all these things. It doesn't do these things. It's just a van.
And I'll be showing my age now. The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, I think if we was going to do them programs, we would have to do, like you say, A-Team, Dukes of Hazzard, maybe Smoking the Bandit, because they are all vehicles, but in a different way, you know.
It's kind of like they had that. It's weird with things like that because, especially the 80s, I don't know if it's because that's when I grew up, but the vehicles, even as far to go as Star Wars with the Millennium Falcon and all that, they seem just as important to me as what the actors and, you know, the characters in the plots were. It's crazy. I don't have that now with modern stuff, but all that stuff growing up, they were equally as important to me as the main characters.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the other thing with the A-Team van is it wasn't as much in the forefront as these 3 shows either.
No, because I can remember sitting there just wanting to see it. I remember being disappointed when there was an episode and it weren't in it.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about A-Team, did you ever remember the bit in the intro where you see Dirk Benedict and you see a Cylon walk past?
Yes.
It's a weird look. And, you know,
I thought that was brilliant. That
clever, wasn't it? It was a little nod, like you remember he played Starbuck, like, you know, it was that. I always thought that was a clever
and how
thing.
big the A-Team got, the fact that Boy George was in it. That was mental because he was massive at the time, wasn't he?
I think Cyndi Lauper was in it at one point as well, wasn't she?
I think she was actually,
and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of actors, singers, and that in that. Yeah. What was I going to say? Yes. So Chef said something here, and I'm going to come back to this later. Magnum PI is significant in something we're going to talk about, but we'll get to that because we're not quite at that yet. Man, the chat's moving so quick I can't keep up with half this. Every time I go to click on something, another comment comes in. TV shows were heavily backed by American car manufacturers. Yeah, of course, yeah. Probably why, like, the American industry was doing so well at that point because of this, you know, Ecto 1.
That was Ecto 1. My God.
I've got an Ecto 1 right here. Look, I've got it sitting on my desk. I do need to get a Knight Rider and a DeLorean, actually. I've got my little X
The
over there.
DeLorean. Yeah. Isn't it crazy, though, that you look at that decade and the vehicles and all that were just so important, weren't they? Is that an age thing? Do you reckon kids today have that same magic that we had with vehicles?
Not at all. I mean, can you think of a vehicle that's important in anything you've watched?
But we're now of an age, aren't we? We're sort of old and boring now. I don't know.
Why is my Alexa activating? Very strange.
They haven't really. I suppose you've got the Fast and Furious films where people started really liking the Japanese car scene and some of the muscle cars again. But there isn't really anything that emphasizes that today, is there? That's why I put the question, could one of these come back now with a complete reboot with a different, a car we all recognize today and make that a central part of
if I'm honest, I think the only thing that they possibly could maybe reboot, and that's only because it weren't so good the first time around, would probably be Street Hawk, because Street Hawk was plagued with a lot of problems, which is why it was as short as it was. I think that if you, like I always say, you should never reboot something unless it was flawed to begin with, and you can do a better version. I agree
with that. I really agree with that. I think that remakes.
Why is Chef
they remake the wrong stuff? They need to remake stuff that had potential, and for whatever reason was not a success. And
Chef,
go with that.
Is Chef asking? Because I just said this a minute ago. Is Chef asking if he's in it, or is he just repeating?
No, he's just. I think he's confirming what you said. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it threw me then. So I was like, what? I can't think of any really. Oh, here we go. General Lee. Yeah, well, the problem is, like, the General Lee is quite a controversial vehicle these days, isn't it?
It is now.
You'd have to change a few things.
Being so impressed. It was my uncle. He had a Capri, and I know it doesn't look anything like the General Lee, but I remember once I was only little, and he got in the car like they did in that. He just jumped in through the window, and I just thought that was so fucking cool.
So what Chef's saying here, that is true. He has been trying to get this rebooted because when I did my original video 4 years ago, he had a petition going. So there is actually an active website still at the moment.
I think that would be. I think out of all of them, Street Hawk, because it didn't get to where it deserved to be.
So yeah, the website, because I jotted it down here, streethawkonline.com, and I think that's where we had the petition going on now. I'm sure it was. So yeah. Obviously, going back to Knight Rider, because we're not quite done there, but obviously, one of the things I always found funny with Knight Rider is in the first few episodes, Kit hates Michael. He can't stand him.
Mm.
You remember that? Like, he argues everything. He tells him he's wrong. He doesn't want him even in the car. Like, In fact, if I remember right, at first he locks the car and won't let him in.
Yeah, he don't. Yeah.
And it's funny.
He has to kind of gain Kit's trust, doesn't he? I kind of like that. It built a relationship, didn't it?
Well, Scott, storytelling.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what we complain about with the new stuff, They'd never do this in the new stuff, never. Controversial. It's controversial because of the flag that's on the top of it, Tetley. Think about it. Yeah, see, look, Chef just said the flag, yeah. Just don't say it in here. Whatever you do, do not say it in here. But there's a certain type of flag on the top of it, yeah, that's offensive.
Now, it wasn't then, really, was it? But
well,
change.
Well, I don't know. I suppose you probably could argue it was even then, but
yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. So, right. So, do you remember the Knight Rider 2000 movie?
Vaguely.
I'm not sure, but I think it might be in our box set we've got. I'm sure it's in there. I think it is. I'm sure it is.
Let's hope these are in order, shall we? So that movie came at the end, didn't it?
It was a few years had gone by because Devon looks, the guy who plays Devon looks noticeably older in that.
I can remember they were a lot older, weren't they? I don't think it is in this set, you know.
Oh, I thought it was.
Well, I'm on season 4, disc 566.
Guilty pleasures. I don't know. I wasn't a massive fan of that movie, Chef. I mean, I didn't like the red kit. So, I mean, I just thought that car looked awful. I mean, that car is so bad, I can't even actually tell you, I can't compare it to anything because there's nothing that's looked that ugly as far as I'm concerned. It looked bloody awful.
Because that, again, that was another push. Hasselhoff wanted to reboot it, didn't he?
Well, I mean, the thing with that was they wanted to basically change the car. I mean, obviously by then, I suppose the Trans Am was quite old then, maybe not quite as popular, and they probably, got to a point where the car was just falling apart. So they needed a new car, and they picked this red one. But I mean, the whole point of a lot of what goes on in the film is it's, to start with, it's not actually the kit he knows and loves, is it? It's a new kit.
Mm.
And by the end of the film, he swaps out the computer that's in it and puts the original kit in it.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because then when you get to the 2008 series, they seem to completely ignore that and Team Knight Rider, because in the first episode, you see bits of the original kit in the garage where the new kit is.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, obviously your kit is now a new kit. So there's no mention, there's no sign of the red one. So it's like, okay, so does that mean that you're ignoring it and that never happened? Or are you telling us that the original kit is still in that red car somewhere? And the reason you've got the bits of the Trans Am is because kit's not in that anymore. It doesn't really explain it, but it certainly does make you wonder, well, hang on, are we ignoring that or are we including it and that's why there's a new kit? Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I suppose it's a way of doing the series without having to explain too much, I suppose. So, yes, just put 1991. Yeah, that'll probably be about right. So it was a few years later. Because if I'm right, Knight Rider ended, I think, 86, didn't it? Yeah, 86. So that would have been 5 years afterwards. So, but they did do another film. Oh, God, they didn't let it go, did they? They did another film called Knight Rider 2010, which came out in 1994. Funnily enough, that had a Mustang, which is the same. They use a Mustang in the 2008 version. Different model, but it's still a Mustang.
I've never seen that one.
Oh, was that what it was? A Pontiac Banshee? It was a concept car. Right, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, don't see that one, Scott. It's terrible. So basically, the only thing it's got in common with Knight Rider is that it's got a computer in it, but it's kind of like the AI of the main, or I'll say main star. He's not, don't think he's even an actor you've ever seen in anything before. But I think it's his girlfriend or his wife. She ends up dead, and somehow he puts her into the car.
Right, okay.
And he keeps seeing like this hologram coming up on the dashboard, if I remember right. It's a long time since I saw it. It's terrible. So it was not something I ever wanted to go back to. Yeah. But it's set in like the future, and they kind of done it a bit Mad Maxy sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Like, in fact, it was terrible. So don't, if you ever see it, just don't.
That's another great car. The car at a Mad Max. Woo!
Yes, yeah, Interceptor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Martin's here. Let's get Martin in.
Hey.
You tried that right, Martin, because we're still talking about Knight Rider, and I'm pretty certain that's your favourite, right?
Sorry, I was making sure that I muted everything else. So what was the question, Lee?
I was saying you timed that right because I think Knight Rider is your favourite, and we're still talking about Knight Rider.
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily Knight Rider as my favourite. I think I was probably more of a Street Hawk kid.
Oh yes, smart.
Oh well, you're all right then, because we haven't got to that yet. All right.
Yeah, there we go.
So yeah, before we move on to Street Hawk, obviously we was talking about Knight Rider 2008. So in that, you actually, like I said, you see the old parts. Mike Tracer is the new, main guy in the 2008. He's Michael's estranged son. Voiced by Val Kilmer. cancelled due to poor ratings. And right, so here's the interesting part. So it was a custom Mustang primarily, which changes to a Shelby Mustang and a full truck. And that was all explained by nanotechnology. That's how it changes, right? Basically, it can change shape and look. Now, I think that the reason, this is my own personal opinion, but I think the reason they included that was because they needed a way to set the new kit away from the old one. Because let's be honest, the old one was bulletproof, it was supersonic, blah, blah, it did all this stuff. How are you going to make the Night Industries 3000 better than the 2000? Well, you've got to give it something that one didn't do. And I suppose nanotech was the answer to that. Personally, I think that was a bad idea, but this is the problem, isn't it? When you're trying to do something from the 80s and you're trying to bring it back into the future, like, what can you do that's different? Because if you had have done the same kit, it wouldn't have been so impressive, I suppose. So, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I think it's too nice a car. The thing I liked about Street Hawk and I know we're talking about Knight Rider, is, and sometimes even with things like Back to the Future and those kind of movies, the car was quite. They made it cool, like the GT500 Shelby GT5 is already a cool car, right? You don't need to jazz it up with bits and bobs to make it look cool. And I think for Knight Rider, that original, what was it, a Corvette or something it was, wasn't it?
Pontiac Trans Am.
Yeah, like what they added to it just lifted it to make it look cool. Where when I'm looking at pictures now of the Knight Rider 2008 car, and it just doesn't look like a Knight Rider. It looks like they just stuck some red lights on what already is a cool looking car. So it doesn't lift to me to be like the DeLorean was never a great car, right? Yet they looked super cool when they done what they done to it. So I think that's the problem. They've taken a really cool car and tried to make it cooler, which doesn't work. You got to
what they should have done is built a concept car,
or even that,
somewhat on the original, and had something completely new. But like what Shepard's commented there, the reason why the 2008 transformed into 3 different vehicles was to sell those vehicles at the end of the day.
Yeah. But also, like I say, because they had to do something different with it. And how do you make it more impressive than the original kit? You know, they used most of what you could have done on the original kit, right? So
they needed, if anyone's ever going to watch a new Knight Rider, they're going to have to style it on the original Knight Rider and somehow make it look futuristic or look with the times, but keeping with the styling of the original somehow. Which would cost an absolute ludicrous amount of money to build a whole concept car just for a TV show.
Well, like we were saying earlier, they did it with the Knight Rider 2000. That was a concept car, according to Chef.
Yeah, but it was probably a concept car that had already been built by Trans Am Pontiac to maybe launch. And if that had taken off, they would have probably sold a shed load of them.
I don't know, but it was the ugliest car I've ever seen. That's all I remember. Whose idea was it to make kit red? I mean, that was just a bad idea anyway, wasn't it? Really? Red?
Pontiac lost it altogether, though, didn't they? You know, the 80s was sort of like their decline.
Yeah.
You know, the Pontiacs in the 70s, 60s, 70s were amazing looking cars.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of people that love them cars don't particularly like the Knight Rider one. That's not that one. It's only because of Knight Rider that got so big.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point. It's taking an unassuming car or a car on decline and making it cool.
Making it cool,
That's what I think.
I don't know, though. You say unassuming, but come on, like, he did use Trans Ams, don't forget, in Smoking the Bandit. I mean, that was already a cool car.
But that was an amazing car, wasn't it? You know, that just oozed class.
All 3 of them films, he's in a Trans Am Firebird. And also, I'd argue they were using him in Cannonball Run as well.
True.
It was a cool car.
But maybe like we're saying, it was cool, but on its way out, so it spoke to a certain audience.
Way out.
Yeah, it was one of the later models. It was a lot different. Like, for example, the one you saw in the first Smoking the Bandit looked very different compared to what you saw later. But I think like what you were saying, in selling cars, but also the Mustang. That was when they just brought out that new look of Mustang, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, probably one of their better cars, because that was when it started to have decent handling and suspension and that, you know, wasn't the old steel girder at the back like it was on the originals, you know, like they started to copy some of the European cars a bit. So yeah, maybe that's why they went with the Mustang at that point, like you say, because it was a popular car at that point, you know. So
well, it's Ford. Ford obviously funded an awful lot of that TV show because what better way to advertise these vehicles?
Yeah, what Chef's saying here, Knight Rider 2000 never got mass produced. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier. I can't describe what it looks like because there isn't another one. Like, you know, it basically looked like a red jelly mold on wheels.
It's mad when you look at it because the Back to the Future films never saved DeLorean. DeLorean still went bankrupt and bust, and the cars. Well, the problem is the funny thing about Back to the Future is you had to get to 88 miles an hour to go travel through time when a real DeLorean couldn't do 88 miles
too
an
heavy.
hour. That was the problem.
It was too heavy, yeah, because it was made out of stainless steel, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the engines in them were shit. They literally, I think they pushed about 60 mile an hour or something stupid.
But they were stainless steel, so they were really heavy too.
Yeah.
But what Chef's saying here, they called it the Bandit. Are you sure they didn't call it Ban 1? Because that's what it was called, Ban 1. In fact, you want to get technical, the number plate was Ban 1, but the car was actually called Trigger. That's what he called it, Trigger.
Yeah.
Huge smoking.
I think also the allure to us as an English audience, I imagine, is that we never saw those cars on the roads, right? We never saw DeLoreans. We never saw any of this type of vehicle. So to us, they're always quite magical because we were like, oh man, look at that big American car, especially Knight Rider. Like the nose cone on Knight Rider was so long and the bonnet was huge. It was like, whatever the trunk as they would call it, or
oh yeah, you're totally right. Because even now, I'd be like, whoa, I'd love to own one of those. They're not practical in this country to run. They cost a fortune.
Oh yeah,
fuel in them, and they're massive, bulky, and they drive on the wrong side of the road.
Well, mind you, like even with that Mustang in the 2008, if I remember right, they had one of them on Top Gear they tested, and I'm sure Clarkson complained because they put stupid little small fuel tanks in them, so he was forever having to fill it up.
Yeah,
you know, on a road trip. So, you know, even then they were still making like silly little things on American cars. You know, anyone who watching this that's American is going to hate us tonight. We're bashing their cars.
No, we're not. I don't think we're bashing. We're just saying.
Well, no, we're not actually. I love
American cars. To me were always quite fantastical because they were always so huge. Like whenever you saw a Cadillac in a movie or anything like that, you were like Christine from the Stephen King movie, and like those.
What a car!
Exactly, but because to us they were just so alien because we never saw anything like that. My dad had a Cortina, and that was never going to be that great. So, but then we never. So to us on the big screen when we saw these cars or these motorbikes or these helicopters and stuff, they were always quite fantastical to me because it's like, oh, I've never seen that on the road. It must be so cool to drive that. Probably it was horrible to drive, but to us they were just amazing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is a thing, you know, like I say, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. I do love American cars. Like, you got, I mean, don't get me wrong, even the British ones and, you know, European cars, you look at some of the older ones and classics, you do look at them and you go, oh, I do like them cars, I do miss them. But I think when you look at an old American car, you have a different feeling about them. I don't know, is it just me? Like when I look,
they go for ridiculous sums of money because it's feeding off that nostalgia. It's feeding off that, you know, the amount of money people are paying to import these cars and have them done up. It's crazy. It's mega money. It's over supercar money now.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, like, for example, a Dodge Charger or a Camaro, or, you know, you look at them and you're like, oh, they are mean-looking cars, them.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, and that 2008 model Mustang, that's my favourite look. That is, I love the look of that car. Gotta be honest. But
my issue with it being a Knight Rider car, is that the front end of it's just too square. Like Knight Rider looks like it's cutting through the air, right? That's how it can go so far.
unless it's in Super Pursuit mode, then it don't.
Yeah, but even in Super Pursuit mode, it's still a bit boxy. The old Mustang for me. So, yeah. I'm not saying Night Rider.
Mode is more boxy.
Yeah, sorry, I know what you mean. Yeah, and they stick on the bits of cardboard and stuff to make it go
Let's
faster.
put some Lego on it and make it look better. Yeah, more drag. But
it's missing that sort of like dart that Knight Rider was, right? It's missing that sort of wedge shape at the front.
It's just lost that 80s cool, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I've got to be honest, one thing I do like about it, like I said earlier, Val Kilmer voicing Kit, he's very good at it. Which is interesting, right? Because obviously in recent times he's got throat cancer, isn't he? So he's actually got problems with his voice, which is always seemed quite ironic to me because you hear him as Kit in that, and it's like, wow, he's actually got a really good voice. He sounds good as Kit, which you might not have noticed when you watch him acting things. He's a good actor, but you wouldn't have really paid attention to his voice. But when I watched that, I was like, do you know what? He's really good. He's like as good as the original. He's doing a very good job at that. And then it's kind of ironic that in recent times, obviously, he's then got throat cancer and he's now having trouble speaking. And it's like, wow, like it's almost like people realised how good his voice was, and now it's too late. Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say there?
Yeah.
It's always the worry, isn't it?
Yeah. What's that? No charges left. Vin Diesel keeps smashing them up.
Yeah, true.
That's true. Pole position car in their tank. Look, see, this is a problem with Chef. It's like when we have him on the stream, he goes off on little tangents about stuff that's got nothing to do with it. We're not talking about pole position, Chef, right? In fact, if your internet's working so good to be in the chat, why aren't you on here?
You're lucky he's still in the chat, mate.
yeah. It's in there more than he normally is, yeah. Right. Okay. Shall we move off into Airwolf? Because I'm very aware of the fact that we've nearly gone an hour just on Knight Rider.
Oh, wow.
Admittedly, Knight Rider, let's be honest, I would say is the biggest one out of the three. So it was going to take longer to get through, I think. But right. So a few facts about Airwolf. First episode aired on the 22nd of January, 1984.
Wow, was it really that long ago?
Yeah. So this started 2 years after Knight Rider. Final episode aired 7th of August, 1987. So it ended a year after.
So Airwolf is 40 years old this year.
Yeah.
Well, from the start of it, yeah.
That is crazy. Wow, 40 years.
Yeah. Woo. So a few more bits about it. After the original was cancelled by CBS after 3 seasons, third season is terrible. And I should point out, I've got the box here and I only have the first 3 seasons in there. There's a reason for that because there was 4. A full season with a all-new cast and a smaller budget was filmed in Canada for the USA Network. And it gets worse. So if I just move on a little bit before I get to how Airwolf come about. Basically what happened was they by the time they got to season 4, because they canned it after season 3, right? When they got around to season 4, they decided to at that point they did not have access to the helicopter. Right? They'd sold it, right? They'd sold it and it had become an air ambulance, which actually crashed and killed 3 people. But that's another story.
I knew that, yeah.
Yeah. So where they'd sold the helicopter, what they started doing then was they was reusing footage to a point where...
Old clips?
Yes. To a point where you'd see one clip and the helicopter would be a certain type. And then it had cut to the Airwolf and then back to the helicopter and it was a different colour. Or a different model. They actually do that a lot in that. Basically, the only parts that were original footage was when they're inside the helicopter. They created like a, obviously a set, which looked totally different as well. It didn't look anywhere even close to what Airwolf looked like inside in the original.
I can remember watching season 4 and being so disgusted by it. I didn't watch. I think I watched the first 1, maybe 2, and I never watched the others.
Well, the reason why it looked so different was because in the full series they had 4 people instead of, because first season of Airwolf there was 2 of them. Second season they then brought in a female, and then obviously when they went at the end of season 3, and I need to get into that a bit more in a minute. When they brought the other guys in, there was 4 of them now, 3 blokes and a female. So I suppose that's why they changed the look of it to incorporate the 4 people, right? But even in the pilot, you only had 3 mags. So I don't know why they did that. But so basically in the full series, when the first episode starts, you see Stringfellow Hawk briefly, probably because he was a raving alcoholic at that point, and they'd had a lot of problems with him in the previous seasons. He was turning up drunk. He was unable to work. It was a nightmare, apparently. So you briefly see him. Santina, you don't see him at all. You just see a body double, and he gets blown up in an explosion. And the female, you don't actually find out anything about her. She just disappears. So you don't hear anything about her. She's just not mentioned. And then you got the new cast, and the only person that you're kind of aware of is the main guy, who's Stringfellow Hawk's brother that he thought was dead. He turns out he's been deep undercover, which is why you couldn't find him. It's all a bit lame, isn't it, really? You can see why it was really bad, can't you? You can see. So, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But,
yeah, but when I was 6 years old, mate, it was freaking awesome. So...
Well, no. The first 3 seasons were. Season 4 weren't. I think even when you was that age, season 4 would have been bad. I'm pretty sure of that.
I can remember being a kid and seeing what I didn't know it was the 4th season, but seeing a season where there was none of the original cast in it, and I was just like lost interest. I didn't watch it.
Yeah. I mean, the other problems also. I mean, they strayed away from things. Like the first season was all about espionage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then they done away with that, and it was more sort of like domestic sort of disputes they were dealing with, wasn't it? That was when I think it got a bit stupid, because it's like, well, right. So just an example, like, you know, one episode they'd be dealing with gangsters or something. It's like, yeah, no, you should be dealing with like some sort of militant group that's threatening America.
Yeah,
that makes more sense.
Like that,
you know, it just got really silly. Like, right, hang on. Chef, do you ever shut up in the chat, mate? I can't keep up with this. He's like constant. Right, hang on, where is it? They use footage from the old TV show. Yes, we know that. I've just said that. It was a Bell 222 helicopter. That's right, it was, yes.
I guess that point, Lee, where you said like they were going up against like local gangs and stuff. That's one of the issues with that, is that they have, unlike Knight Rider or Street Hawk or something that's a bit more sort of low, it's like it's at street level and stuff like that. When you've got a helicopter that can go hundreds of miles an hour, it's got an arsenal of weapons, it's got all these things, like it's going to be really hard to week in, week out have that level of threat type bad guys to go after. I mean, how many terrorist groups could they go after, sort of thing? So my guess is it was probably a really cool idea because they'd just seen Blue Thunder and thought this would be a cool idea to do as a TV series, but then didn't really have the after a year of it, probably ran out of ideas, right? Because once you've done it, what do you do? How many terrorist groups can you go after?
What you got to remember with Blue Thunder, it was a police helicopter, so it was never about like supersonic speed and you know. Whereas if you got a helicopter that goes supersonic, well, you've got to have it going to other countries, really. Otherwise, it don't really work, does it? You know, you better try to fly that around a city, you'd be like smashing it with everything. Like, you know, there was one thing, right? There's one thing I've got to address. I've got to say it because this has always bugged me about Airwolf, right? Something gets said in the pilot, and if they never had said it, it wouldn't be an issue. But some dickhead has to say it in the first episode, and it bugged me for the rest of the run of that, right? Someone turns around and says in the first episode that the rotors turn off when the jet's engaged, so they don't damage the rotors. When you look at the footage, you can clearly see the rotors again. Because, of course, it's sped up footage. Of course, you're going to see them. But it's like, why did you put that in there? Just don't even address it.
That's not how helicopters work, is it? I don't think you could turn off the rear rotor. You would not be able to control the helicopter. Basically, you're going a straight line.
Actually, yeah. I mean, she doesn't specify what rotor she's on about, so yeah, you got a point there. But I just think, you know, whenever I watch that, and when I first watched it with Connor, even Connor remembers me saying it. I think it's a female character who says it, and I remember like I was sitting there and I just went, oh, like that. And Connor's like, what, Dad? I was like, I hate
maybe
that
it's
line,
like
you know?
I can't remember his name, but the head bad guy from Mask, his vehicle is a helicopter and a jet, isn't it? Like the rotors come in and then the wings come out, and he maybe they should have done that, and that they would have gotten away with it. Then.
Yeah. It's always just been still got the Airwolf game on the Amstrad. Oh God, the game, Jesus.
CF these great TV shows, but they never made any decent games out of them.
No.
All of them had just poor games. Street Hawk was terrible. Airwolf was terrible. Knight Rider, how many games of that have they made? And all of them were terrible.
Yeah. It seems to be like a common thing there, don't it? I mean, I don't know, Martin, but you recently got a game that's around a TV series. Is that one any good?
What you mean, He-Man?
Yeah, I'm guessing. I'm going to make a guess that it isn't.
Yeah, I've done a Spectrum Spectacular on the He-Man games. Wow, they're bad.
Yes, that's what I thought. I do seem to remember them being bad. Yeah,
oh, they're bad.
It's not quite as bad as the Thundercats game, but I mean the Thundercats game on the 264 is pretty bad. But
let's not forget, Bomb Jack 2 was originally meant to be a Thundercats game, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it's still got the music. But anyway, we're going way off topic here. So right, Chef earlier on mentioned Magnum PI, and I said that would become relevant when we get to Airwolf. So the reason for that is because Donald P. Belisario, he toyed with the idea of an ace combat pilot and his adventures in the third season episode of Magnum PI called Two Birds of a Feather, which came out in 1983. The episode was intended as a backdoor pilot, but the series was not commissioned, so Belisario then changed the idea into what we now know as Airwolf.
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah, so technically, there's a little bit of history between Magnum PI and Airwolf. Yeah. And if I'm right, I think it might have even been the same guy that appeared in that episode that played Stringfellow Hulk. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's the same guy. I think Chef's a big fan of Magnum PI. Surely he'd be able to tell me. I'm sure he was a fan of that. What's that? Miles Mayhem? Oh, he's on about the Mask character, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at the Mask DVD box set the other day. I need to get that.
Do you know what? The one thing about 80s cartoons, and I'm probably I'm going to get shot for this. Mask wasn't anywhere near one of my favorite cartoons. I actually didn't really like the cartoon that much. It was the intro.
Yeah.
The intro was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fantastic intro, but the actual cartoon itself I thought was weak compared to the other amazing cartoons we had in the 80s.
But then look at our three programs tonight. Again, amazing intros, right? We were sold on intros as a kid. We were like the music, all three, Airwolf, Street Hawk, and Knight Rider. For me, especially Street Hawk, the intro. You were sucked in. It didn't care if the episode sucked. you were in.
It's kind of a bit like box art, isn't it? Intro. That's drawing art. These TV shows. Some of them have okay intros, but nothing like what we had back then.
Well, like we said earlier, we touched on the fact that, story as well. And this was the other thing. I mean, when you remember these programs, they didn't have massive budgets and they reused footage in quite a lot of them. It was the stories that dragged you in, like something that new stuff's lacking because they don't care about that now, So you had good intros, good music, and good stories. This is what kept people coming back, wasn't it?
And I think also you knew what to expect. Like you knew at some point the good guy would get like, would have, like, for me, like when I watch things like MacGyver or A-Team, there was always going to be a bit where they were trapped in somewhere and they were going to build something awesome whilst they were in there, and you'd like know that bit, no matter what the episode was about, that part was coming. At some point. With Knight Rider, you knew at some point he was going to turbo boost through a city or something and jump over something. So there was always, don't matter what the episode was about, I was looking forward to those moments where I'm like, this is the bit, he's going to do it, he's going to press the button, he's going to go, that's the bit I look forward to. So they were predictable, but as a kid, like, you wanted that predictability, you wanted to see those same things happen every week,
Yeah, that's true. So apparently the reason why they canned it after, this is why they canned it after season 3, was because the cost, basically it was too expensive, fueling the helicopter, etc. And also ratings dropped as well in season 3. I don't know if you've watched season 3, but it's not great. I mean, I remember one of the episodes where Airwolf has a rival helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
It's a gold one. I don't know if you remember. It looks
I do.
I do remember that one. Yeah.
It looks dog shit, doesn't it? It don't look like a threat at all. And it's like, oh, this is to destroy Airwolf. It's like, yeah, that's not happening. Like, it's really not. Like, I can see that's just a normal helicopter with a couple of rubbish guns strapped on it. No, even when I was that young, that weren't fooling me at all. Who decided to have a gold helicopter? Why gold? I suppose you couldn't do black because, the good guys have got that, but gold? Why didn't they do red? Red would have been better, surely.
Yeah, red might have been better.
Gold. Yeah, not good. I think we covered a lot of season 4, but I mean, some of the other things they changed was Archangel went. They got rid of him in season 4, and they replaced him. Well, in fact, the story was that Archangel goes overseas, and of course he worked for the firm, and that then got replaced by the company, and then you ended up with some other guy that was basically Archangel. Again, my guess is, well, you've been in 3 seasons, we'd have to pay you more money for a 4th, because that's how it works in America. So get rid of you, change the company name, replace you with a new actor, less money, saving money, right? That's my guess. So, yeah, Hawk's brother turns out to be alive, which contradicts the 3 previous seasons, because, we're meant to think he's dead. And like I said, deep undercover. So here's the kicker, right? Now, this is why season 4 was so bad. Season 4 had less than 1/3 of the budget they had for seasons 1, 2, and 3. That's crazy. No wonder that was so bad. 1/3 of the budget to do the 4th season.
Yeah.
I mean, why? Why did they even decide to do it? They should have just not even bothered. What made them think? But what made them think they was actually going to be able to pull that off?
I just like Scott said, they probably figured there was some money still to milk out of it. I don't know.
They just thought the name would carry it,
Yeah, exactly.
Many things, isn't it? They just thought the name would be enough.
Yeah.
There wasn't I don't remember. Maybe there was, Scott. Maybe you'll know. I don't remember there being like a huge toy line around Airwolf.
Not really. They did release like a die cast.
Yeah.
And that's about it, really.
To be honest with you, I don't think any of them really had a massive toy line, did they? I mean, like we were saying earlier, Street Hawk. I mean, I remember there was a pull cord motorbike, but that was it. And only we got that. America didn't even get that.
There was a lot more Knight Rider toys.
Yeah, Knight Rider in different form, like Lego and die-cast toys and other things like that. But
I think
Knight Rider. You remember everyone wanted the remote control.
Yeah,
kit. Everyone wanted that, and then there was a big dashboard kit. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's quite a rare tool now.
You could get. I might be imagining it, but I think you could get a watch as well, couldn't you, to talk to Kit on? I think.
Yeah.
Yes, you could. Yeah. In fact, Retro Recipes has got one. In fact, I don't know if you've seen. He's actually got a kit, hasn't he? I don't know if you've watched these videos.
Yeah.
He started off,
yes.
He started off doing his Tesla up and called it Kit Tesla, and then actually got to a point where he was actually getting a kit, a proper one.
Yeah,
and he's actually got a proper one. So I watched them videos. I thought them videos were really good. Yeah, nostalgia that proper nostalgia.
I've featured on one of his videos, Lee. Commodore Corner was on it.
Was it? Was it?
Yeah, was it?
Okay. What, in the Knight Rider episode, or
No, one of his other shows that he does.
Oh,
they
okay.
sending the nostalgic photos, so I sent in my recreation of Commodore Corner. So yeah.
Oh, nice. I don't think I must have seen that, surely. So I do watch quite a few of his episodes. Anyway, get off on a tangent. So as I said earlier, where they were reusing footage, a lot of times there was inconsistencies with the helicopters or planes or whatever. They would change. And I mentioned obviously that the helicopter crashed. Now that happened on the 6th of June 1992. Apparently it was in a thunderstorm when it happened.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
killed 3 crew members. So shame, innit? Like, I mean, obviously for starters, it's almost like that helicopter was surrounded with bad luck, right? I would say, but and don't get me wrong, it's absolutely tragic that it killed 3 people, but it's also tragic that helicopter got destroyed. I mean, like you'll never see that again. Like with kit, you still got kits around. People still have them, but Airwolf's gone. Well,
it's affordable as well, isn't it? People will get an old Pontiac and get it, every detail right, like Retro Recipes. But with a helicopter, that's a bit, you've got to have a big wallet to replicate Airwolf, ain't you?
And I was going to say it's probably a good reason why they had to reuse footage and stuff like that. Not only because it was in decline, but I mean the cost of keeping and running and operating a helicopter for multiple scenes, multiple takes. The cost per episode of Airwolf, I bet, is significantly higher than the cost per episode of, say, Knight Rider or Street Hawk, right? And the fact that they probably had 15 different Knight Riders in different states with different stunts and stuff. I know they had to cut in half one. They had the one where you just had there was a damaged version. There was all sorts, so that they could play in different cars. You can't do that with the helicopter. You've got one, and if it don't work, you ain't going to use the footage. So you just chop up other bits of footage.
That was why it got canned after season 3 was because of how much the helicopter was costing. Yeah. But you'll see that this is a common thing throughout all of these seasons or series, because when we get to Street Hawk, similar story.
It is a shame, like you said, though, it didn't get preserved in some way, and end up being nice. That is obviously a shame.
It doesn't sit well with me. It really doesn't, because it's like you just think that's a pretty important bit of history that you're never going to see again. You know what I mean? So what was it I've got here? Airwolf concept was a supersonic helicopter that could seem normal, like a civilian vehicle. And this is what I was talking to you about earlier, Scott. I think this was before you jumped on, Martin. Did you ever notice what the patch was on the flight suit?
Was it a wolf?
Yeah, but anything else? Do you remember anything else about it?
I'm trying to remember. I know it was a grey and white wolf. Did it have something written underneath it in yellow or something? I can't remember.
Think about the white, what the white could have been, and you might be close.
Was it mountains?
No.
No, okay, then I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I don't know.
So the concept of the helicopter was that it was a civilian vehicle, so it could hide in plain sight. You'd see it and think, "Oh, that's unassuming. It's a civilian vehicle," and then all of a sudden you're getting shot at, right? So the whole point of the patch was it was a wolf with a sheepskin and then a bat wings. So the bat wings indicated that it flew. The wolf pit for the wolf, sheep's clothing for the. Clever, that, isn't it? I never realised
I remember the bat wings now. Yeah, I didn't clock on. I'm just looking at it. I definitely remember the bat wings now. I never clocked on that it was also them wearing a sheep's wool around it. Yeah.
So
I've only just clocked that now. Yeah.
4 years ago, when I started the channel, I did a video on this, and I didn't know until then about the sheepskin. I was like, "Wow, that's really clever." It's like I never noticed that, and so many people didn't. That's the thing, like. It's a nice little detail that someone put that in there, but no, it's just a shame that no one picked up on it at the time. It's interesting, isn't it? Good way of doing it.
That is very cool.
This is the thing, isn't it? I mean, I don't even remember when I was a kid it even being brought up that it was a civilian-looking aircraft. They do say it in the pilot, but I don't remember anyone really ever paying any attention to that, because all you ever heard was, "Oh, I can't believe Airwolf could do that. It's only a normal helicopter. Like, you know, it's what people used to say, innit? Obviously, they were missing the whole point of it. It was supposed to look like that, you know? So I suppose the same people who said things like that were the people who didn't notice the sheepskin. So, you know. Yeah.
But again, I don't feel like we saw those types of helicopters in the UK. I feel like our helicopters are a lot more, just different. Maybe they were, mate. I mean, obviously air ambulances and stuff like that. But as a kid, that helicopter to me looked so cool. Like it was such a, it looked like a, you know, it looked like it was covered in guns, even though it didn't have many guns on it, to be honest, looking at it. But as a child looking at it, to me, it was the coolest thing. And the sound it made was the coolest thing, you know.
Unfortunately for me, I had a sister that was in the ROC, which was the Royal Observer Corps.
Okay.
And their job was to basically know any type of aircraft that might try and threaten the UK. So as a result, my sister basically knew every type of aircraft under the sun. So I was constantly told, oh, this is a such and such. And we did have them over here. Maybe not as much as you'd see them in America, but we did have some over here. So, yeah, it kind of ruined the magic for me when I was younger. She was like, oh, that's just this, and it's painted black and white. I was like, yeah, cheers. Like, thanks for that. It's that ruined. Thank you. Like, you know, so although, you know, looking back on it, my sister had an incredible mind because thousands of different types of aircraft she had to learn, and she knew them all. She could look at one and go, that's this. You know, that's clever, right? So she should have gone on a game show like Mastermind. Like, what's your chosen subject? Name all these vehicles. Like, you know, she would have aced it. So, right. So, anything else you want to mention on Airwolf before we move on to Street Hawk?
I don't know if you guys noticed. I didn't know this. There was actually a movie in 1984.
What, of Airwolf?
Airwolf the movie, yeah. I've never seen
the pilot, wasn't it? They basically just crammed the 2 pilot episodes.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, it's actually called Airwolf the movie.
I don't know if they chopped anything out, but they basically just put the 2 45 minutes together, didn't they? Yeah. I mean, it's something they did quite often with Knight Rider as well. Like when you had Goliath come into it, you had Goliath Part 1 and 2. You know, Goliath Returns Part 1 and 2. You know.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Someone was saying to me the other day, I'm going to sneeze. Someone said to me the other day that there was rumours that they were doing a new Airwolf. I don't know if this is true, but I forget who it was who mentioned it. I can't say I've seen anything about it.
I reckon nostalgia is a powerful thing and it can make lots of money. And I'd imagine all of these are being touted and trying to make them again. You know, it's just going to take someone to back one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And always keep trying to ride that wave of nostalgia to try and bring these back.
I just don't think they'll work because it was an innocent time. We didn't have, and I mean that in the way that we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the world is a lot smaller place now because of travel and the speed of cars and planes and the internet and all these things. So what would Airwolf do? Like, what would Street Hawk do nowadays? It's like, I don't know. I just don't think it would work.
Yeah.
Where back then we were so innocent as kids, like we just believed everything we saw. Yeah, of course, this bike can fly through traffic at 200 and something miles an hour. Yeah,
my biggest problem with Street Hawk, because it came along later. Obviously, we was all that bit older when Street Hawk came along, right? And you know, the biggest problem for me that I couldn't get my head around was how that bloody thing turns without falling over at 300 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And not only that, it would have took probably 10 miles just to turn around. It's true though, isn't it? Like, that was one
this
thing
is the thing though, like what Martin's saying, we live in an age now where everything's got to be realistic, everything's got to be doable. But back then it wasn't so much the case. It was your imagination that you went with. You didn't care that Street Hawk in real life couldn't turn because he was going 300 miles an hour. You didn't care back then, but now it's kind of important.
Yeah.
That everything's got to be lifelike.
I'll be honest, like I say, because was older when Street would come around, I did actually question it. I've got to be honest. I was like, how is this bike doing this without falling over? You know, so whereas with Knight Rider, because it was earlier on, I didn't question it at all. And also, let's be honest. I mean, with a car, it's got 4 wheels. It's a little bit more stable. Airwolf's a helicopter, so a bike. It's like 300 mile an hour on a bike. Come on, you'd fall off that. So. I did actually at that point. I did start to question it. I've got to be honest.
But I think if they rebooted them, sorry, go on.
If they rebooted Street Hawk, then he would have to. If that like when it goes fast, it would like have to encase him in like a I don't know a bullet.
I think the only way you could do Airwolf, I think for it to be even slightly believable, I think you'd have to have it so that when it goes fast, it comes off the ground, it hovers.
Yeah, maybe.
That's how you'd get around now, I think, like some sort of jet propulsion.
Yeah, like a hover bike sort of
thing. I think that would work,
Yeah. And then still encase him like a bullet, because if you come off anything like that at 300 miles an hour, you're going to be jam, aren't you?
Yeah.
If I was doing it, the way I would reboot it is I would actually go for a more adult cartoon, and I think you can get away with a lot more. That's what I would do. I wouldn't reboot like it in the real world, sort of. Like a manga cartoon or like you know what I mean when I say adult cartoon. I mean like the Castlevanias that have been out recently, those sorts of things. Like because then you can get away with a lot more and you can be a bit more fantastical. I think if you try to do a Street Hawk or Knight Rider in today's modern world, I just don't see it working. I just but in a cartoon, I think you could do it nowadays with today's talent in animation. I think you could do an amazing cartoon of like Street Hawk or something.
The thing that worries me though is, and you know what I'm going to say. Do I need to even say it? You know what would happen.
So a female can ride a motorbike as well, Lee. It's all right.
But it wouldn't even be that, would it? Like, it wouldn't even end up being about the bike. It wouldn't even be about the main star. It'd be about the person in the background that no one cares about, wouldn't it? Like that's what it'd be. Like, it wouldn't be Norman Tuttle. It'd be like, I don't know, some woman name.
Right? And there wouldn't even be a motorbike in it.
Yeah, it'd be another bait and switch, wouldn't it? That's what that's what they do. I mean, we're laughing about it, but that's what would probably happen.
Street Hawk gets scrapped in the first episode. Someone takes him to the dump and scraps him for parts.
Yeah, a new Knight Rider. That wouldn't be about the car or the Pontiac. That'd be about the Tesla.
Jesse Mark pulls up on the bike and someone walks up and just shoots him in the head. That's what it'll be. Because let's be honest, that's what they're doing with the new Suicide Squad game with Batman, isn't it? Harley Quinn's going to shoot him in the face. Yeah.
I knew you was going to bring this up.
But anyway, let's not get into that. But let's be honest,
I mean, at least he gets killed by a really good superhero with loads of superpowers and loads of abilities, and not just someone in makeup. He goes out in a good way, doesn't he, Batman? He goes out how we all want him to go out. Yeah.
You're being sarcastic, right? Anyway, so as we know, Street Hawk only run for one season, 13 episodes. So basically half a series. Yeah, there it is. Only one I haven't got yet on disc. I do need to get that. So started on the 4th of January 1985 and ended on the 16th of May 1985. So you might be saying, oh, January, that's an odd time for that to start. Well, that's because they released it at a mid-season release, which doesn't normally spell well. So basically, it was originally due to release autumn 1984, but they had another program called Call to Glory, which was doing really well and was getting good views. So they didn't want to ruin that, so they pushed it back. They didn't want it conflicting. So they made it a mid-season release, which is probably one of the reasons it didn't do too well. So unfortunately, some of the scheduling probably caused some of the downfall, right?
Yeah.
So here's a question. Did you ever notice any changes between the bike and Jesse throughout say from the pilot in the series all the way through? Did you notice anything changing?
No, I've watched some of these recently, so...
Because I'm trying to think of my 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old self probably didn't care. I haven't watched them recently to see if
I'd imagine the bike had some changes because they got
must have
through
done.
serious numbers of motorbikes making that.
Just a bit, but there was also changes even to the crash helmet. Like there was see-through bits of plastic that appeared here. I think you had one up here as well.
Yes,
which weren't on the original. It was all black in the original. But also the bike changed from the pilot into the series.
Yeah.
So
because one thing, I don't know if you ever notice this in movies that have motorbikes in them, the tires change even in scenes. So if they go from road to rough, you'll notice the tires go from slick to off road. It happens in Mission Impossible 2, and it's so obvious. It's literally the camera's like on the tires, and then the tires just change.
It's not even just that, Martin. They get the motorbike sounds wrong as well. I mean, I used to ride, so I noticed this shit a mile off. Like like it'll be sounding like it's doing 180, and you can see it's only doing 40. It's like, what are you doing? Like that's not how that sounds. Like, or you'll have a motocross bike that sounds like a Grand Prix bike. It's like that's not how that sounds. Like, I hate that.
I'm sure Street Hawk had some tire changes mid-scene and stuff like that when it was doing the things it was doing.
Oh, for sure. But so in the pilot, the bike was based around the 1983 Honda XL 500 Trials bike, right? It was built combining parts from an electric start Honda 500 Ascot with the chassis of a dual sport XL 500 on an off-road bike, right? So that's the initial bike. But in the series, it was then based on a 1984 Honda XR 500 using the electric start of the street-based Ascot, creating the first known electric start Honda CX 500. So technically, they made history with that bike in the series. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And that was what was used for the performance sequences. The bike for stunt shots were based off the CR250 dirt bike, which is a motocross bike. Mate of mine had one of them. I had an RM and he had a CR, so I know them bikes very well. So they used a motocross bike for a lot of the off-road stunt sequences, and then a CX 500 that had been modified for the rest. But it's interesting. So, you don't necessarily notice a massive change on the bike. So it's quite clever how they've done it. Because, you can see that some things are different, but you don't notice that it's the entire bike. So it's quite clever how they've done it when you think about it. But you could argue you see less and less of the bike as the season goes on, so maybe you wouldn't notice anyway. You could argue that. So apparently one of the reasons why the show went down to Swanee was the bike constantly broke down and fiberglass parts fell off, and as a result, they had 6 bikes on standby.
Yeah.
6. Yeah, makes sense.
And as you remember, I don't know if you guys remember this, but fiberglass back in the day, I mean, that glue they used to hold
it was really expensive. I remember, I don't know
if it fell apart
or whether I read about it, but the cost was astronomical. They had spent the whole entire budget on just those episodes, so the company behind it just got cold feet and just pulled the plug.
And that's why you saw less and less of the bike. You'll notice as the season goes on, I'd say the pilot and episode 2, because let's not forget, episode 2 has a very young George Clooney in it.
It does,
Who plays Stalker, his mate. So and that's a good episode. That's got like people dying in that. It's quite a good dark episode, but good. And then after that, it just comes down to like maybe you'll see the bike at 5 minutes into the end of it. Like, you saw more of Jesse Mark the cop and less of him on the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and apparently that was the reason. It was the cost. The bikes just literally rattled themselves to pieces. But then if you're jumping a bike around with fiberglass that's held together with, let's be honest, terrible glue back then, you're going to have bits falling off, right? So.
And again, it's the price you pay for doing everything in physical stunts, right? This day and age, that would be wires, green screen, CGI.
Well, it wouldn't even be just be a CGI bike, wouldn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So they had to do it. They had to do it all for real, as they say. So and I'm sure there are accidents that happened, and therefore that caused damage. I mean, the fiberglass back then would have cracked under any pressure, right? So any little knocks here and there, it was snapped off. So they probably went through several bikes in just one show, and then that's
is that why these are still so great today? Is because it was all done for real.
Yeah,
that's what makes it stand out, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of sort of proper film critics talk about like a lot of films just don't, because you don't feel there's danger in it, you don't attach to it as much, like because they're not really jumping from one building to the next. Even when you're watching it, you're kind of like, well, it's gonna be fine.
And this is why you love the Jackie Chan film.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing all those stunts, and the same with Tom Cruise with the Mission Impossible films and that. These do well in the box office because of those amazing stunts, and he's doing them.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I mean, the other thing, did you notice how you see they seem to forget about a lot of the weapons on the bike as the season goes on as well?
Yeah.
Like they make a big thing about the laser in the first episode. I mean, later in the season, you don't even see that.
You never see it again, do you? Yeah.
The cannons that come out the sides as well, you didn't really see much of them in the later episodes either. Again, probably to save on cost, Oh, we don't need to fire any ammunition because we won't show that. But the problem is they're the bits that made it cool, right? They're the bits that we want to see. That bit when he shoots out the robber's car in the first episode with a laser, you're like, oh, wow, like we want to see more of that. Well, because you won't.
I think they brought out a Street Hawk bike, didn't they? Because
like a BMX.
Like a BMX, because I can remember, what was it called? The Wildcat, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I can remember that looking a bit like Street Hawk, and I really wanted one.
A mate of mine's younger brother had one.
Street Hawk bike.
Brother had one, and his brother said to him that he could jump cars on it. So he tried. He went down a hill, basically put a massive dent in his dad's XR3i.
Oh,
his dad was not happy. Of course, he was more worried about his son because he knocked himself out and all his teeth. Like,
Jesus!
Yeah, he was only young, smashed all his teeth out.
Yeah,
I had brother.
I had a Rally Piranha BMX bike that was black and white, and when I used to ride that around as a kid, I used to think I was Street Hawk all the time. Because in my eyes, I was going a million miles an hour. When I was pedaling as fast as I could, and let's face it, I was probably doing 10 if I was lucky, maybe. But in my head, you're coming off the curb, you're going up the sort of stuff. You were Street Hawk, right? You were you thought you were so cool. But yes, I think there was a bike kind of styled on it that had like a few electronic sort of like sounds and stuff like that. And
there was I'm sure it was called the Wildcat.
Yeah, I think it was. But
they also like a wolf sort of thing, but it was really cool. I can remember so badly wanting one. I nearly bought one a couple of years ago because one come up locally, and they wanted a lot of money for it, and I was so tempted because it was the bike I wanted as a kid. But
they also released like the modulating sound things as well, because I had a Rally burner, and I remember I had one of them like sound things that you attached to your handlebars and you could push buttons and it made all the noises.
I
mean, it wasn't Street Hawk, but when you put it on, you thought you was on Street Hawk. Yeah. So basically, I remember getting one of them. I think my nan got it for me for my birthday. And I remember putting it on because I had like a second-hand Rally burner. I loved that bike. That was my first bike. And I remember attaching it onto the crossbar on the handlebars. And that was great. I used to ride around pushing the buttons, pretending I was Jesse Mark. It was great. Yeah,
very cool.
That was the best thing about Street Hawk, if I'm honest, was that because it was a bike you could relate as a kid because you had a bike. You could pretend like pretty well. You couldn't pretend you're driving a car or a helicopter, but you could pretend you was on a motorbike. So,
and again, the allure for me was with the family I grew up in. My dad was very anti-bikes. They were going to kill you as soon as you look at one. So I've always grown up with that sort of you must never have a motorbike and all this sort of stuff. So to me, like, it was an opportunity to see them and imagine, like, it was like quite a taboo to me to be like seeing these motorbikes and seeing how fast he went and seeing the action he got into. So that's why I sort of connected with it, because it was a a taboo. It wasn't something I would ever be able to do, even though I'd ride my BMX and try and do stunts on that. But yeah, that's why I really liked it, because it was so different again to what I'd seen. You know.
Well, Street Hawk, like we were saying at the start, weren't we, Scott? I mean, Street Hawk is probably one of the things that's responsible for me getting into motocross and then even having a bike on the road at one stage.
Yeah.
That and the fact that my uncle had a super bike as well. But they were the two things that got me into riding motorbikes. Street Hawk was definitely what started that, without a doubt. I had a fascination with motorbikes for a very long time, you know? Yeah, good times. But saying that, I got one on the road, and I remember I come off that a couple of times, and both times I come off, it wasn't my fault. It was, on one occasion, it was a lorry dumping oil all over the road, and then another time I'd gone around a corner and hit a patch of black ice, and down I went, you know. You know, on the roads, even motocross, they are dangerous. They are dangerous. There's no getting around.
That's cool.
That's the Wildcat.
That's it. Yeah.
There was also another one called the Street Wolf.
Yeah, Street Wolf. That was the one my friend had. Yeah, that was the one my friend's brother had.
I just sent you one in the WhatsApp group on the No Late Fees. I just sent another one, which is Rally's Vector. It's called.
Yes,
I remember that as well.
Wow.
Yeah. We was always rally bicycles in my house. My dad was also very strong on British made, so it was like
rally were king back then, though, weren't they? I mean,
they were. Yeah.
Like, you know, they were king back then. You know, back then, someone said mongoose. You're like, what's that? Like, you know, you was, didn't you? Like,
there's the Street Wolf.
That's it. Actually, that might be the one he had. I don't know. They all look quite similar, didn't they?
Yeah.
But each one,
stabilizers on the back of it.
This one had like a thing though, like a dash on the handlebars. Though.
There's one in, you know, RMC the cave. He has got one of those in the cave. An actual like that.
That's it.
That one I had the picture of had that missing, so I just put in that, and it's come up with the actual display.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
I think it's literally got a red LED in the middle, hasn't it?
That's it's just a red LED light.
Yeah.
But to us, we were tracking people through whatever, you know, we were doing all sorts.
So it is something interesting about this. Did you know that Argentina, when they aired this Knight Rider and Airwolf, they tried to put it into the same universe?
Wow.
Yeah. It's really lame what they called it. Like, it was something like the magnificent car, the magnificent bike, the magnificent helicopter. You know,
we all would have loved that though. Come on, if they had done a crossover episode, I'd have been all over that as a kid.
I don't think they did it as a crossover. I think it was more that they were still separate series, but they tried to promote it like they were all in the same universe.
Except I would have wanted Airwolf to sort of lower towards the ground, and then a back piece open, and Street Hawk comes flying out the back.
That
would have been like
that would be pretty cool. Yeah, that's true. That would be pretty cool.
Going back to Knight Rider, one of the most coolest things, and it was because at the time.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Coming out the truck, right?
Coming out the truck.
Yeah.
And you remember a game that was massive back then was Spy Hunter.
Yeah.
You could drive up the roads and then go into the truck to get your next power up.
Yeah.
And that was in my head when I was watching Knight Rider. I just thought that was so damn cool that he drove up into that truck. Oh, it was awesome. We forgot.
Mind you, though, do you not think like the way Street Hawk come out of the base was also pretty cool? And the sign opened up and it just comes jumping out, you know?
And that always jumped out, didn't it?
Yeah. I remember, like, because you can hear it coming as well. That's the other thing. You'd see the doors open and you can hear it going, and then all of a sudden it goes out the door, doesn't it? You know? They always did that. They had that little bit where you could hear it coming and then it comes shooting out the doors.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. As a kid, when them doors open, you're like, where is it? Where is it? Oh, there he is. You know.
Well, again, with all three of them, they made sure that they all had iconic sounds, right? I mean, Airwolf, the sound of it, as it went past and stuff like that. Yeah, like an amazing sound when it flew by. They always made
all them attentions to detail seem to be lost now. They really do.
Yeah.
Well, when Lee first mentioned about doing this topic, I had said to him then that's one thing that I think's been lost completely is that all of these programs have got one thing in common. They were on about 5-6 o'clock on a Saturday night, and it was an event. It was event TV. You sat down as a family and you watched the A Team or Street Hawk or Night Rider or whatever it was, and it was always one of them on, and it made Saturday nights that a little bit. It was the start of Saturday for me. It was always the start of Saturday night. It was like, okay, we're in now, and we're going to watch these programs together as a family. And there isn't that. I mean, the only thing I'll reverse now is saying is that with Gladiators returning, we now, the family, sit down and watch Gladiators every Saturday. And it's actually really nice. It's not on-demand TV. You not just press it when you want it. You've got to be there to watch it
in it when it's on. And me and Eden, we're the same. We sit down together, we have our tea, and we sit there and watch Gladiators. And she loves it. She thinks it's amazing. Yeah.
And we've lost that TV. We've not got. Obviously, I know Doctor Who tried to come back and do it, but Doctor Who, let's not get into that.
Doctor Who sucks. Doctor Who sucks. Dave Ross had a life support system. It wasn't offensive to people.
We won't set Lee off on that topic.
We're set Lee off on one now. You're even mentioning that.
But there isn't a Saturday night.
Again, that was Disney, by the way. So gotta say this. Fuck Disney. I love to say that in streams.
We're missing that Saturday night spectacle TV, and it's been gone for a long time, right?
Have you heard the rumours, Lee, that Knight Rider's been bought up by Disney?
Do you know why? It wouldn't surprise me.
Implode.
It wouldn't surprise me. They've ruined everything else I loved as a kid. Why not? I mean,
the car was black, but they've now done like this really cool rainbow paint job on it.
I mean, let's be honest, right? They're doing Tron 3. There's a reason why they're doing that. They killed every other franchise. It's the only fucking one they got left, isn't it? So let's be honest, right? They killed everything else I loved as a kid, so why not? Just ruin Knight Rider. Fuck it. Go on, do it. Airwolf, Street Hawk, have a lot.
Right, everybody.
Fucking Disney. I hate them bastards. Oh, God. Do you know, one thing I do like about these streams is like, and I know we're sitting there and we're laughing and joking, but this is the best thing when it comes to like cinema TV, because this is more fun than the shit we're watching on the TV.
What we've got to remember, right? With no matter, on a more serious note, I can't remember who it was that said it, and that really resonated with me. Is that it don't matter what they do to these franchises, if they bring something out and they ruin it or whatever,
we've still got the original.
Those originals. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you got to remember. There's lots of stuff that comes out, and I think what a load of rubbish that is. But you will always go back to the early stuff. It doesn't taint it for me because you just ignore it. Don't exist.
Some things. There are certain things that I can watch and it doesn't bother me, but I mean, then there's certain things that they have sort of tainted, like what they've done with Star Trek and Star Wars. They're just things I can't really ignore because they completely balls them up. But I mean, they changed what came before. That's the problem, right? But when it's other things, Doctor Who, I'm not really a big fan of Doctor Who anyway, so I can kind of put that out of my mind.
Doctor Who is quite a good scapegoat though, because they can always. It's always been a radical TV program. I think that's what made it so popular. Is it can change. It's the first real TV program that. The problem kind of had that ability to be able to change the Doctor, change everything, change the whole persona. So Doctor Who will always live on because they can always change it.
The problem with that is what they did was by changing things, they actually changed the original Doctor. So he's now no longer included in the canon, which is really wrong.
No, I don't agree with sort of like the whole trying to rewrite what was already there.
Yeah. So, that's why I've got a kind of issue with that, because that guy's, he's not here. He's no longer here. And you're like, oh, let's forget about that guy. It's just wrong.
Unfortunately, you just have to get to the point where it stops being your program. So, this happened even before this time. Like when one of mine Scott's favourite films, obviously Lost Boys. To me, Lost Boys is the only Lost Boys movie. Whatever happened afterwards, I don't care. Like it doesn't enter into my head. I've seen that movie, Lost Boys 1. I've seen like literally 100 times, probably easily 100 times. The other ones I've seen once, and I never watched them again. So to me, in my mind, there is only one, you know, and I can do that with other, like with you at Star Wars, Lee. I mean, it's like probably the first 6 movies, and then you're out, right? Like that's probably where Star Wars ends for you. And the same with Indiana Jones, like those franchises. You know, The Last Crusade is the last. I haven't even seen the last one, and I have no interest in seeing it. I tried to watch 10 minutes of it, I couldn't. So to me, it ends there. Like that's it, and that's what I've started to do. I've stopped worrying about it, and I know it hurts because these are things that we found very fondly. But I can go back and watch Lost Boys whenever I want. I can go back and watch the first 3 Indiana Jones movies whenever I want. I can watch the 6 Star Wars movies, the Lord of the Rings, all of these things, and that's it. That's where the enjoyment is. I don't care if I'm not going to watch probably the new Roadhouse movie because it's not going to be anywhere near as good as Roadhouse. You know, there's stuff like that. I can think, you know what, it's not for me. It's for a different audience, and I will stick with what I've got.
One thing I will say, which gives me hope, is I watched the new trailer to the new Ghostbusters film.
Yeah,
and that actually really captivated me. And I thought, do you know what? This has the feel. It kind of gave me the feel of the first 2.
I think also it could be. It looks like it could actually be a step up in like scare quality. It looks like it's actually going to be a little bit like. I think kids will watch that and be a little bit scared.
I do kind of hope that, you know, they're starting to realise that if you're going to bring a franchise back, you've got to do it properly. I don't know, because the Ghostbusters Afterlife was a great film and a great tribute to the originals, and I think that's made people wake up a little bit in Hollywood because that film actually done quite well.
Yeah.
And the fans loved it. So hopefully, you know, that will.
Well, that's a good example of how they got an old IP and actually managed to bring it into this, you know, into this time.
Because that was all cleverly done. They've used actors out of Stranger Things. They had that whole feel of Stranger Things, but put it into Ghostbusters, and it worked.
Well, the thing is, this is the thing. This is what Rex is trying to do with Street Hawk. He's trying to get it rebooted.
Yeah.
He's, you know, we mentioned this earlier, Martin. He's been petitioning, like, and there's a website, streethawkonline.com. It's still active as well. I checked this. He was petitioning at one point to get it remade.
How old is he now, though?
I don't think he was going to be the lead in it. I don't think he was going to.
I reckon he'd be what's his name? The guy.
He's getting on a bit though.
Yes, he'd probably be the guy that sits at the desk, wouldn't he?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who played. Hang on, I've got his name here somewhere. The one who played Tuttle, which is the one who sits at the desk.
Yeah.
Where is the cast?
Because I thought he was actually a really good actor in that.
Joe Regal Batu. They always got strange names, haven't they? Like I can never pronounce them. Anyway, that guy, I saw him in an episode of NCIS a few years back, and he aged quite a bit, actually, surprisingly. So,
it's 40 years ago. So if they're in their 30s, then
well, I mean, this episode of NCIS was quite old at that point, but it still would have been about 20 years, maybe a bit longer at that point. So so we had obviously talked about the cast. We had Rex Smith, obviously Jesse Mark, and do you remember Lieutenant Commander Leo Altabelli? He was played by Richard Venture. Now, if I remember right, wasn't he quite a big actor before that series? I think he was, wasn't he?
Yes, he did look familiar, but I couldn't place what it was I'd seen him in. So it might have been other TV.
Yeah,
probably.
Because you notice in that series that he kind of like commands the screen, don't he? The camera when he's and you couldn't help but when you watch it, you're like, yeah, he's done this before, like, you know, like whereas some of the others looked a bit green, he didn't.
Yeah, well, that Rex wasn't an actor, was he?
I don't know. I mean, I certainly haven't seen him in anything until then.
I'm sure they brought him in just for his. I think he was good on a motorcycle. I think that's kind of why they chose him.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, obviously, you had the woman in public relations. Oh, hang on, I've lost it now. And she played the character of Rachel. Her name was Jeannie Wilson. She went on to be a producer, so she's I'm guessing she come out of acting and went into that side of things.
Yeah.
So it sounds like she did all right out of it. But yeah, so it's interesting that they're still trying to redo it. And we were saying earlier, Martin, that we think that's a season that probably would be good for a reboot because it wasn't that great the first time round, and the mistakes were made. Let's just say. And when you do reboots, I always feel that you should do reboots of things that didn't quite work out right the first time, rather than trying to outdo something that was already great the first time round. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like Martin's idea of making it like an animated, sort of anime style thing.
Well, it could be done. Really, I mean, they did a Tron animated series.
Yeah.
So it could be done.
Honestly, some of the best stuff I've seen recently has been animation. Like the Cyberpunk animation was really good, and the League of Legends one they did called Arcane was really well done. Like,
I've not seen that. The League of Legends one.
If you've not seen the season's called Arcane is the program, but it's based off the heroes from the game. If you've not seen it, Scott, it's brilliant. I can highly recommend it. And I just feel like that sort of gritty cartoon, like with gore and sex and all that stuff in it, but with the motorbike, and they could probably do some. I can literally picture it. Like I think they could do a really cool. Then the alternative, which is to try and make Street Hawk in New York or California or something. The
coolest vehicle probably in an animation like a film was the motorcycle in Akira.
Exactly.
Amazing, wasn't it? So it could be done, definitely.
Yeah. And even do it in a future, like do it in a far future or something like that, Akira would be like, you imagine that being, you could see it, right, as a Street Hawk thing.
Akira's a good example. Because I mean, the bikes look really futuristic in that anyway, don't they? If I remember right, I think you even see bikes in Ghost in the Shell as well, if I remember right. Yeah.
But because then you can get away with like it almost like to the idea of when it goes really fast, it then the wheels turn and it hovers. Like, do that in like CGI. It will look terrible in CGI, but in animation you could do that really well and have that it actually transforms and it goes up a wall almost, or it can go vertical up walls and all sorts. So racing up the side of some gigantic skyscraper in the future city or something would be really cool.
We need to pitch this on the Street Hawk website.
Well, the thing is, it would make sense for it to hover because that's the only way you could account for turning at such speed. Or even going that fast without hitting anything, So, it's the only way. And to be honest with you, I don't know why they never. Well, I do know why they didn't have the money, but you can't help but think that Street Hawk might have been a little bit before its time. If it had been a bit later when CGI was a thing, maybe they would have thought of that and gone down that route. Maybe, For me, right, one thing I do know, having an electric bike, right, I happen to know that you need better tires because of the speed of it, the weight of it, the friction it's created on an electric bike because of what you're doing. So my question is, what bloody tires did they have on Street Hawk? Because they must have been some impressive tires. That's what I'm going to say. Because at 300 miles an hour, I'm pretty certain that they would have probably melted. But they weren't no Michelins. I'll tell you what
I can think about now is I'm sitting here thinking about Street Hawk, the anime. That would be absolutely tremendous.
It would be a good way of doing it. It really would. You know what?
Perhaps we should pitch it to Disney. Where are they getting their writers from? I'm sure we could do something a damn sight better.
I think definitely. I think we could.
If Disney got hold of it, I can almost guarantee that would do worse than the original. I can almost guarantee it. They'd get a full season out, but that would be it, I reckon. Like, the ratings would fall off a cliff. They'd end up doing what they did with Willow, where they have to take it off their service because it costs more money to have it on there.
Yeah, so they could claim the tax back on it.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But it's good that I said it's good to take a walk down memory lane thinking about these sort of things because let's be honest, it was at a time when we was all quite impressionable and TV was good back then, wasn't it? I mean, like what you get, like you're saying, like you was touching on, you don't even get TV really now, do you? It's all streaming platforms and, it's just not the same, is it? Like when you watch Knight Rider and an advert come on, you're sitting there, you're like, oh, bloody hell.
Yeah.
You had to wait 5 minutes to see what happened to Kit. Now you stick on a streaming platform. Well, they're bringing adverts back. So Amazon, they started introducing adverts apparently again, haven't they? But what I was going to say is, you're sitting there watching it. You don't have that peril anymore with most stuff on most streaming platforms. You're not sitting there going, oh, I wonder what happened to Kit,
But that's the magical thing. The memories of it, like what we've touched on already, is the fact that it was a family event.
Yeah.
Everyone, your mum, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, everyone sat down and watched those programs.
Mm.
And it's kind of, it's coming back to an extent like we touched on with Gladiators, but, we need that sort of thing back, I think, because a lot of stuff that's good on television today. So don't get me wrong, there's been some fantastic TV series come out, whether that be American or English dramas, but they are dramas, very adult, it's not a family thing, is it? It's something you watch on your own in your own time sort of thing.
Do you know one of the things I always found quite impressive about Knight Rider was the fact that they managed, it's always struck me as quite clever that they managed to actually get us to care about Kit.
Yes.
I mean, it is a car, right?
But great writing, isn't it?
Yes, it's got a personality. You don't think of him as a car, you think of him as a person. And
like what you touched on, the whole relationship, like what you said in the early Knight Rider episodes, Kit didn't like Michael Knight. They were, and it took that relationship and that bond.
Yeah, and character development, and then eventually they start to like each other. Yeah, and as a viewer, you were then watching, and you were scared that Kit was going to get killed. Like I remember watching that episode when he goes up against Goliath, and he's like, "I'm going to take his wheel out," and I'm sitting there like, "No, don't do that, don't do that, because you're going to kill Kit. What are you doing? It's a lorry." Like you cared.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, all it is just a Trans Am with a little red flashing light or 3 bars in the later ones and some guy's voice. But it was good writing. You cared. And it's a car. That's something that Airwolf and Street Hawk were lacking because it didn't have that, it didn't have an artificial intelligence. It didn't have a personality.
Anything other than a human being talking in the 80s was amazing, wasn't it? I can remember seeing my first video game and hearing it talk. I was like, whoa, that is absolutely amazing. It blew my mind. Well, maybe that was part of it.
Like we were saying earlier, I mean, Carr was voiced by Peter Cullen, who did Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
I mean, when I heard his voice as Carr, it's like, wow, that sounds good. He does sound really good. But then the later guy that come along, I forget his name. I've got it written down here somewhere. But I mean, when he came along, Paul Frees, he was just as good, if not better. Right? I mean, and that's just his voice. Like, again, this is something they're lacking now. Like, how many people do you know in things where just their voice can captivate you? And all it was 3 little yellow bars in Car and 2 different voice actors. Both of them were fantastic. And you believed when you heard Car talk that he was evil just by the voice you heard. That's clever, right? Like, that's an art that's sadly lost, I think, these days. Yeah,
no, totally.
Yeah.
You think about I'm sitting here thinking about great voice actors, and I think Mark Hamill was still a great voice actor.
Oh, yeah. He was a joker.
Yeah.
He pulls off the joke, and I think he's really good at Skeletor as well, to be fair.
Yeah, he is quite good. I mean, he's done some good voice acting. Yeah, for sure.
There's a few still out there, and I think it's an art form that's coming back because we're talking about great sort of animation films. It's kind of on the forefront, isn't it? Because look at Warner Brothers. Their live action films aren't doing as well as their animated films and stuff like that. So voice acting, I think, is coming back big time.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope. Anything you want to add, Martin?
I was only going to say that, I think the reason why we look back at these things so fondly, and we talked about that sort of on demand, and I'm in danger of sounding like a really old man, but I think we have lost something with everything being at our fingertips and available. Like you had to wait to see Knight Rider. It was only on a Saturday, 5 o'clock. and if you missed it, you missed it. Unless your dad recorded it, and then you had to wait a whole week again to see the next one. And I wonder now, like in 20 years' time, will my kids look back at any TV shows the way that we look back at them? I don't know if they will, because they consume so much, and actually they consume more YouTube than they consume TV shows. And I don't think they'll have that, which, you know, not necessarily a bad thing. They'll have different memories about different things, and, you know, the world moves on. But I think having nostalgia for this stuff, I think it's a really great thing. It's so much to look back at and be happy about it. Literally, even thinking about these programs makes me happy. And it's and I feel it'd be weird for our kids. You know, they don't have that.
One of the biggest conversations in my shop is what you're exactly just said there. Is in that it doesn't matter what entertainment or media you look at today, whether it be music, film, video games, everything is with kids today, because they've got access to so much. It's chuck away. It kind of has no substance anymore. Whereas, like, exactly what you've said is that we used to have to wait a week for the next episode, or you have to, you know, wait until your birthday to get the next game. And you only had one cassette with that favorite band that you liked, and you listened to it over and over again. Now everything is at your fingertips, and you don't have that same what's the word? You know, as kids we were very repetitive. We'd watch
anticipation. Is that the word?
Yeah.
There's only. Sorry, go on.
It's just so. The only way I can describe it is everything now is just so chuck away.
Yeah.
You know, a great video game. Kids today are now waiting for the next one, and they forget about the past one. You know, how many video games now that come out today would you say are so great you would play it through again? There's not many, is there?
No.
And the same with films. You watch a film, you think that was all right, but what's the chances of you ever watching it again? Are you going to watch that film as many times as you've watched the Indiana Jones films and TV series? How many times are you going to rewatch them, even though they're quite
There
good?
is an exception, and I'm glad you said TV series, because there is one exception that I would say breaks the mold, right?
Oh, right, okay.
So Picard season 3 was released episodically.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, not only could I not wait until the next episode, right, but I have also gone back and rewatched it twice.
And I have as well. And do you know what? That's what made that so exciting, is that when that episode finished, I was like, oh my God, and you had to wait. I kind of like that. It frustrated me, because I'd kind of got into that use of, you know, when something comes out on Netflix or Disney, you can just bloody watch them all or whatever.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the whole, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And you got to wait until the next episode. They need to bring that back, I think.
And proper nostalgia. Well, they're looking at doing a Picard movie, they're saying.
Really?
There are rumours about it at the moment.
Well, but then I kind of worry about that, because I thought it ended so well.
I
kind of worry that if they do it again, they're just going to ruin what they've already done so well.
Just recut those episodes into a movie.
Do that. Yeah.
I mean, I've got to say this. I know it's not a Star Trek stream, but I've got to say this. Like, when you first saw them all together, on the bridge of the Enterprise D. I mean, I don't know about you lot, but I mean, you got goosebumps when you saw that. It was like, wow, now this is special. This is what we should have had in season 1. And do you know what? My first thoughts when I saw that was, why couldn't fucking Disney have done that with Star Wars?
Oh my! That's exactly what I was waiting for you to finish, and I was going to say that. But that resonated with me, as in, this is what Disney should have done with Star Wars.
Yeah, And we're probably not the first people to say that, and we certainly won't be the last.
Yeah. Do you think that was an intentional thing, though, by the writers of Picard 3, because they knew that Disney?
Right. So the guy that did it, Metalis, he had worked on Deep Space Nine, and I believe Next Generation as well. So this is the point. He knew what he was doing. He knew them stories well. He knew how them series worked, and he knew what people expected. And if you watch that series, you actually can tell that he's actively gone out of his way to retcon a lot of what come in season 1 and 2, so that you don't need to watch it.
I never watched them, because you said you don't need to watch them, Scott.
Yeah, you don't. You don't. He did it in a way that they explain there's a throwaway comment that explains how Picard is technically synthetic, right?
Yeah.
In that series, and that's all you really needed to know. The rest of it, he just ignores the rest of it, because even when they're talking about the Borg, there's no mention about the Borg cube that's in season 1. And the reason for that is because they fucked it up so bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a perfect example of how you should release episodes, how you should do it, nostalgia, and also just the way they ended each episode. I mean, it did remind me of back then when we watched him. When it ended on a cliffhanger, and you're like, no, I've got to wait an entire week to see what happened. Like, you wanted to know, didn't you? And yeah.
And it had a proper bad guy in it. She was proper evil. She didn't hesitate to kill people. It had proper threat. Everyone felt like the whole point of Picard's crew is they all bring a different element to the table. So when they come together, they aren't tripping over each other. They all play their part very well. They're all sort of the missing elements that Picard has, and together they make that fantastic team. So yeah, to me it was a great bit of telly, and I'm glad that it happened, because it was a great way to finish off. I think someone mentioned it before. It's basically the final season of Final Frontier. Basically, it's the last season of It's not Picard season 3. It's Final Frontier season 12 or whatever it is.
Oh, do you mean Next Generation?
Next Generation. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like Next Generation season 8 sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
But to bring this back to obviously like Street Hawk and all that, like, I mean, one of the things I forgot to mention earlier, right, and I'm sure you guys will agree, watching some of these episodes today, what I noticed was some of the really bad acting in them.
Yeah.
Oh my god, some of the secondary characters that are in it, like background characters, you watch it and you're like, oh my god. Like in one of them I was watching, which was the one where Garth first comes into it, right, with Goliath. There's a female actor in it. I don't remember her name. I've seen her in a lot of stuff since then, right? And I remember her being fairly good at acting in them things I saw her in. In that episode, she sucks. Like, she's really bad. I was sitting there the whole time thinking, oh, stop talking. I don't believe anything you're saying.
I think with sort of like acting as well, like that, is because a lot of people will watch old films or old TV and go, oh, the acting was dreadful. But that was the style of the time.
Yeah, it was a charm of it, wasn't it?
Acting now has become so real, sort of thing. More believable, I suppose. Whereas back then it was all a bit more theatre, a bit more.
Well, one of the things I appreciated, right, and because this is the thing, I mean, it wasn't true of all actors, right? I mean, one of the things I appreciated was with David Hasselhoff. Obviously, he's playing 2 parts when he's Garth, right? But of course, the story's meant to be that Garth is actually Wilton Knight's actual son, right? Whereas, obviously, Michael Knight, who was originally Michael Long, his face got damaged. He made him look like his son, which you don't know until that episode, right?
Yeah.
But what I thought was quite clever, and he obviously thought about this. Not only did he know that he had to look different, as in like, his eyes, permanent scowl, the evil look, the moustache twiddling bad guy that you have, But he also was clever enough to think, hang on, obviously he can change my face to look like him, but he wouldn't be able to make me sound like him. And if you notice, he purposely talks with a deeper voice and a different cadence when he's Garth, so that it sounds like it could be a different person. See, now, that was now, you wouldn't have that. They wouldn't even consider that. That wouldn't even occur to them, I thought that was quite clever. That was one of the things when I picked up when I was watching it today. I thought, he really thought about this. He thought about the fact, well, hang on, you can change my face to look like him, but you can't make me sound like him. So you notice in that episode, when he's Michael, he's talking at like slightly higher, and when he's Garth, he's talking lower, and his cadence is different in the way he's saying things, the way he's pronouncing words. He's doing it all very different. He was obviously very mindful of the fact that he had to sound different. Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me because I grew up on Chuck Norris movies and Van Damme movies and Steven Seagal movies, and frankly,
Didn't
all
we
of
all?
those actors, all the acting in those movies, you didn't watch it for the quality of the acting, you watched it for the action and the spectacle. Yeah, of course they're a bit cheesy and they're a bit overacted in places, but that was the style of that was what it was like, you know. It was big hairs, big big costumes, and
Oh yeah, big hair. Yeah.
big hair, man. That was it. Everyone had a mullet, you know, or whatever
Just
it was.
think of the hairspray costs
Yeah,
of
exactly.
those TV series.
There's one. Do you know what you said about big hair? Right, it's kind of funny because I was watching it earlier. I went from one episode where he's got huge hair, and then literally about 3 or 4 episodes later, it's like really like not even half the size, and I was like, oh, he cut his hair. Like, you know, it really noticed. And
Yeah,
it's not something that you really should be paying attention to, but I couldn't help but notice it. You know, it's like, wow, his hair don't look.
I reckon the budgets were cut, less hair lacquer and hair dry usage.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll never see times like that again. Too many hair straighteners now.
yeah.
Right. Well, we just got past the 2-hour mark, so I suppose we better wrap it up here. But yeah, I've like I said at the beginning, I've wanted to do this stream for a while. Martin knows this. I've done this thumbnail quite some time ago, but obviously Christmas, you need to do a Christmas stream, and then New Year. It's always good to look back on the last year of film. So yeah, so first opportunity was this. So yeah, I was looking forward to this, and I've enjoyed it. Like I said before, I had done videos on all 3 of these things like 4 years back, but of course this was back at a time when not many people were watching my channel, so I put a lot of work in, and unfortunately not a lot of people saw it. So it's been nice to actually be able to do this stream, because it meant that a lot of that stuff that I did back then I could actually use, and people might actually watch it this time. So like I said to Scott earlier, the Street Hawk one didn't get bad views, but that's probably because I titled it Street Hawk What Went Wrong. Like that's always a title that hooks people, isn't it? So but yeah. So before we get out of here, is there anything you guys want to plug? Scott, you got anything coming up on your channel?
Not really. I've been so busy. I've only managed to put out 1 video this year so far. Hopefully there'll be another one soon. There's lots of videos I want to do. It's just having the time to do them. To
be fair, we've only just started the year, so you're okay.
Yeah,
on that.
true.
It'd be different if it was at November and you were saying that. Yeah, Martin.
For me, probably more on the live streaming stuff. I've kind of found that I'm a lot happier in the live streaming arena than say the video. I have got some videos because I'm doing another. I don't know if you saw the video where I modded the Switch case. So I've now got a dock. Yeah, and it's a really nice bit of kit as well. But I've now got the accompanying dock case mod and also a Pro Controller case mod. So it all looks like a Super Nintendo. It all look really cool. So I've been doing some videos and reviews on that. Still want to keep doing the Monday Night Retros. Did a painting stream the other night, enjoyed that. So I want to keep doing the painting streams. It's a little bit different for people.
And that was good as well. I enjoyed that.
Someone mentioned on the last one, it's like ASMR. They just like kind of like zen out when I'm doing it. So it's quite a nice thing. Obviously I want to do an update on the Hit Squads, because I actually did the Hit Squads videos quite some time ago and I had never really finished that series. So I'd like to finish that series of Hit Squad videos. And a new idea that I've got, and I don't know whether people will like it or not, but I've started collecting the Commodore Power Pack tapes. So I was going to kind of do maybe a once a month or once a week kind of go through it as if I was recollecting them again. So I go from tape 1 right through to tape 62, I think it is. So and play the games on there and sort of review as if I'd got them that weekend, basically, like how we would have done when we were kids. Play them through. So got a few ideas. Like I say, Scott, like we've all got ideas in our heads, and
I've got so many, but it's just time at the moment.
It's getting them down and doing them and being enthused to do them. But certainly my happy place is in streaming. So I think probably more streaming content for me this year than anything else, really.
See, for me,
I think with me as well, it will probably be me. My next content might be a live stream, because it's been a long time since I've done one. So
Yeah.
I've got quite a lot of Spectrum games I want to show off. And, you know, I've just recently done my Spectrum Spectacular, but I didn't play many games in that. And a lot of them games I'd like to play. So I might do a stream.
Yeah.
Maybe. One of my random streams that no one knows about that just, boom, will go live.
See, for me, I've got plenty of ideas, but the problem is I've got just noise around me at the moment. And if I tried to do a video, it'd just be all you hear is like people smashing walls down and noisy bastard kids that jump around and smash around through the wall. Like, honestly, that's what it's like at the moment. Like, I'm literally being held hostage, like, to when I can do a video, depending on when people go out. That's bad, right?
I tell you what, though, what we've got to end this stream on is the fact that we want a Street Hawk anime, because that's all I can think about now. That's all I'm going to think about is this needs to happen.
Well, before we get to that, hang on, let me just tell you what's coming up. Right, so next Wednesday, Micromaniacs, you two gentlemen are going to be on that with Tetley as well. Is that another one, Martin, where you'll be coming in a bit later? It is, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Thursdays are always a bit later.
Yeah. Well, we ain't done a Micromaniacs for a while, so I wanted to get
I'm looking forward to that, because when was the last one? Back in November time?
I think it was November we did the Amiga one, Martin, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, so that is that. Now, this is the other thing. You guys would have remembered that I mentioned on a possibly not last No Late theme, maybe the one before. I mentioned on my collectibles channel I was going to be doing an unboxing of Asylum, and then I lost it. I found it. So, yay. We know where it is, so that will be coming, as well as many other, because there's a few collectibles actually that I've got to do on the channel. In terms of the Nerdy Geezer channel, other than Micromaniacs, I still need to do pickups because I got some bits for Christmas and a few bits since then that I haven't shown. And I'm sure there was a couple of gameplays I was going to do as well. One of them I spoke to Martin about the other day, which was Sub Hunter, which is kind of interesting because Martin's got Sub Hunt. And when you look at the covers, they look very similar, but they actually aren't. Well, I say covers, it's more the loading screens look very similar, but they're actually quite different. But what I need to do, this is an interesting one, this, right? I've emulated it, and the fire is a very slow sort of pattern. Like, it's very slow at shooting. And I can't figure out if that's because I'm emulating it. So I need to hook up the C64, get it on the proper hardware, and see if it's got the same problem. Yeah. So,
do you want me to capture you some footage of Sub Hunt so you can do a bit of a comparison? I don't mind if it's helpful.
Yeah, could do, because that looked quite cool. That did, yeah.
I'll ping over some video of it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Because at first we actually wondered if it might have been the same game and that they just sort of repackaged it, but actually they have completely changed it. It's very different. But the loading screen looks almost the same picture. That's the odd thing. It really throws you. So. But yeah, so Sub Hunt is Cytronic, whereas the one you got is an old Mastertronic game, right?
Yes, Mastertronic, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got some gameplay stuff coming up. There's even some PlayStation stuff, like PS4 stuff I need to do at some point. So there will be gameplay, there will be other stuff coming. But yeah, loads of ideas, like I say, because they've been rattling around for weeks. But there's construction going down next door underneath. They got construction going on there, and my neighbour this side of me, they've got a kid that just makes loads of noise. So unless he's not there, I can't do anything. So yeah, so I'm kind of held hostage to that at the moment. So, but yeah, so Scott wants us to end this with give us a Street Hawk anime then.
Definitely. Yeah. It starts now.
Yeah.
We should start a petition. Like, let's get an online movement.
Kickstarter in late 2024. Kickstarter for the anime.
Actually, there's one thing I forgot, and we should probably end on this. I forgot to mention that Scott is now a host on No Late Fees. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, yes,
yeah. So obviously Scott's been on here a couple of times, and because there is already 3 of us, and with Scott 4, like, for example,
two and a half, Lee. 2.5.
Well, I mean, yeah. Flake. Anyway, so we're obviously Martin today, for example, couldn't get on till later. The good thing is where there is 4 now, if someone can't make it or can't get on till later, you know, there's still enough of us to still do it. So, you know, so it works out well that way. It means we're still able to do it. So, and that's why I asked Scott, because I know Scott's busy with the shop and all that, and obviously that's got to take precedence over everything. But you know, if he's in a position where he can do it, then he can jump on, you know, and so on and so forth. Same with Martin tonight, you know, prior commitments, but he managed to get on in the end. So, yeah, and it works out all right like that, you know. So, yeah. So next stream, right? I'm thinking, because I already mentioned this to Pedro, but I have also, when I say Pedro, I'm on about Pete from Pedro's Movie Cavern. It's getting confusing because there's two Pedros. I've already mentioned this to him because he got on the subject of Star Wars on our last stream, and it was going into a massive rabbit hole. And I was like, right, we need to do a Star Wars stream because you've got more to say, and I know I have, so we need to do that. So I'm thinking we'll do that one next because I've got somebody else who wants to be a part of that as well lined up. But I'm not going to say who. I'll tell you guys, but I'm not going to say in here. So
I'm going to bring the swear jar, a pound for every.
Oh, they'll be swearing.
Yeah.
they'll be swearing. You can almost guarantee it, right?
Actually, we could put that fun to the Street Hawk anime.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
I'll be broke by the end of it. We're charging for
funded by Nerdy Geezer. You'll be executive for Nerdy Geezer.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that'll be it. Funded by Nerdy Geezer. Yeah. This is a Nerdy Geezer production.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's get out of here, shall we? Just as I say that, I've got to find the outro, which is this. See you later, guys.
Bye.
See ya.